After that slap, the anger in my heart finally eased a little. The whispers I had heard upon entering the capital still seemed to echo in my ears. Look, that is the Hua family's eldest young lady. One glance at her face tells you she cannot be easy to get along with. She's spent 5 years in the border city. She must be even more unruly and impossible to tame now. I heard that even as a child, she ran wild in the Hua residence, bullied her brothers and sisters, and beat and cursed the servants. She has been like an unbridled horse all these years. Now that she is back, won't she become an even greater disaster? I was so angry that I ground my teeth. What did they mean by saying I bullied my siblings and abused the servants? I had clearly beaten only one person, my own younger sister, Hua Wanyi. Ever since childhood, she had been capable of causing trouble on an astonishing scale. If I did not discipline her, it would be an injustice to everyone around us. As her elder sister, of course I had a duty to teach her properly. Sitting astride my horse, I swept a fierce glare over the gossiping crowd. They scattered at once in fright. It seemed that over the past 5 years, Hua Wanyi had spared no effort in smearing my name throughout the capital. Everyone feared me as if I were some savage demoness. At that moment, Wanyi was sitting on the ground with one hand pressed to her cheek, staring at me in disbelief. Hua Shenqing? You dared to hit me? She had probably believed that stabbing me in the back would leave me suffering in silence. To rescue my ruined reputation, I would surely have to pretend to be gentle and virtuous, swallow my anger, and endure everything. At the very least, on my first day back in the capital, I should have maintained a respectable appearance. But we had been apart for too long. She had forgotten what sort of elder sister she had. To help her remember, I raised my hand and slapped her other cheek. That slap is punishment for your disrespect. Who gave you permission to address your elder sister by her personal name? Gasps rose one after another outside the residence gates. Wanyi was stunned into silence, sitting limply on the ground without managing a single word. My aunt hurried forward and helped her up. Shenqing, what are you doing? Who returns to the capital and immediately strikes her younger sister, in front of so many people no less. Do you care nothing for the Hua family's dignity? My aunt was different from Wanyi. She was my elder, and my uncle had shown me deep affection over the years, so I respected her greatly. At her rebuke, I immediately bowed. Aunt is absolutely right. There was no need to discipline my younger sister in such haste. I was too impatient. It truly was improper to reprimand her in the street. I should have waited until we entered the residence and then taught her slowly. The corner of my aunt's mouth twitched. I certainly appeared obedient enough. She had intended to scold me further, but I cheerfully continued. Aunt, I brought letters and gifts from Uncle. It has been so long since we last met. He misses you and my younger cousin very much. It is difficult to stay angry with someone who greets you with a smile. She swallowed the reprimand already on her lips. All right, we will talk inside. I straightened and glanced at Wanyi. Why are you still standing there? Come inside. You have no understanding of proper manners at all. Wanyi opened her mouth but could say nothing. She had thought that after 5 years away from the capital, I would return trembling with fear and live with my head bowed. Those words were supposed to be hers to mock me with. Yet I showed no fear whatsoever, and I held the authority of an elder sister with perfect confidence. Behind her stood a group of noble young ladies of similar age. Wanyi had invited them specifically to witness my humiliation. Now they exchanged uneasy looks, not daring to speak. The Hua family's eldest young lady was indeed exactly as Wanyi had described, arrogant and domineering, ready to deliver a slap the moment she was displeased. All the cutting remarks they had prepared were silently swallowed. None of them wished to receive the same treatment as Wanyi. People were strange that way. If you were truly unreasonable and overbearing, no one would dare provoke you first. I glanced at them as well. I have been away from the capital for so long that every young lady here seems unfamiliar. Why not come inside for tea and conversation? Eldest Miss Hua has only just returned. How would we dare disturb your family reunion? We will take our leave. The girls seemed to awaken from a dream. Without the slightest loyalty, they abandoned Wanyi and fled. It was easy to imagine that once they returned home, my reputation would become even worse. The first thing I did after entering the residence was pay my respects to grandmother. With 2 bright red handprints on her face, Wanyi threw herself into grandmother's arms and sobbed. Elder sister slapped me at the residence gates the moment she returned. I have lost all face. I do not want to live anymore. Grandmother held her and looked at me in shock and anger. Shenqing, did you truly humiliate your sister before so many people? I lowered my head slightly, looking deeply ashamed. I have been away from the capital for too long. I have missed the family every day, and I worried that my younger sister was still too young to understand etiquette, that she might trouble the elders and disappoint our deceased parents. The moment I saw her, I became so anxious to discipline her that I lost all sense of restraint. "Grandmother, please punish me." Grandmother and my aunt stared at me, wide-eyed. So I had slapped Hua Wanyi because I missed her too deeply and loved her too much. Wanyi was so furious that she could no longer even cry. Just then, my young cousin Hua Ning jumped out. I saw everything. Eldest sister was clearly bullying second sister. She slapped her twice for no reason. No wonder everyone says eldest sister is crude and violent. My aunt immediately covered his mouth. Seeing someone take her side, Wanyi felt even more wronged and burst into louder sobs. I looked at the child. This young cousin had been born after I left home and knew nothing about the events of the past. I did not blame him, but he was still young, and it would be unfortunate if others deceived him. I smiled at him. "This must be my cousin Ninger. Uncle often mentions you," he said. "You are growing older and must not neglect your martial training. He specially asked me to bring back the 10-form staff manual for you to practice." Hua Ning blinked blankly. He saw nothing alarming in those words, but my aunt understood their meaning. She inhaled sharply. My elder cousin Hua Chen, the legitimate eldest grandson of the Hua family, was currently guarding the border city with my uncle. Back then, trainings in this staff technique had nearly broken him. Although Hua Chen was now exceptionally capable, my aunt still vividly remembered how her eldest son had nearly ruined his health through relentless training. She truly could not bear to see her youngest son suffer the same hardship. Did his father truly say that? Ninger is still young. There is no need to. I looked at her earnestly. Uncle said that beginning at 5 was already late. He instructed me to supervise Ninger's training after I returned. When Uncle enters the capital at the end of the year to report on military affairs, he will personally examine Cousin Ning's martial skills. At the end of the year? My aunt inhaled sharply again. What month is it now? Mother, what is wrong with you today? Hua Ning had yet to grasp the gravity of the situation. Weren't we talking about eldest sister? Why has this suddenly become about me? My aunt smacked the back of his head. Why is a child interfering in adult matters? Go back to your room. Starting tomorrow, you will rise early to train. After speaking, she cast me a glance. I continued smiling pleasantly. My aunt understood exactly what I meant. Children should not have too much idle time. As he became busy with martial training, he would have no time to spread idle rumors. After that interruption, grandmother momentarily did not know how to continue. Your parents died early and left only you two sisters behind. That is all the more reason for you to live in harmony. Whatever the cause, it was wrong for you to strike your own sister the moment you returned. Had you been raised beside me, I would certainly punish you severely. I said from the beginning that a proper young lady had no business going to the border city. Now look at you, wild and difficult to tame. Grandmother was not a bad person. But Wanyi had been raised beside her all these years, so some partiality was inevitable. Besides, Wanyi was exceptionally skilled at presenting different faces to different people. Before grandmother, she always pretended to be obedient and gentle, coaxing her until grandmother believed she was the kindest and most mild-mannered girl imaginable. I did not blame grandmother, but I could not tolerate her indirectly accusing my uncle of failing to educate me. My aunt's expression also became unpleasant, though she did not dare contradict grandmother and could only glare at me. Seeing that someone had finally defended her, Wanyi looked smug and sobbed even harder. Anyone could pretend to be pitiful. Do you truly think so poorly of me, grandmother? My face suddenly filled with sorrow and I dropped to my knees. I left the capital as a child and went to the harsh border city. Yet uncle, elder cousin, and I have never passed a day without thinking of our family and grandmother. At every festival the three of us knelt facing south and prayed from afar for the whole family's peace and for grandmother's health. When I heard that I could finally return to the capital and reunite with my relatives, I was so delighted that I could not sleep for 3 nights. I brought several carriages of frontier specialties, hoping only to please grandmother and everyone at home. I never expected that the moment I crossed the threshold, I would make grandmother unhappy. If uncle learns of this, he will certainly whip me. Grandmother was caught completely off guard. Why did you suddenly kneel while speaking? Get up quickly. I was not blaming you. You have returned from thousands of miles away. At last, she also realized something was wrong. I had been sent from the capital to the bitterly cold frontier while still a child. Now that I had finally returned, my family had not asked about my health or shown sorrow for the hardships I had endured. Instead, the first thing they did was reproach me. My uncle had fought at the border, shedding sweat and blood to secure the luxurious lives enjoyed by the women of the family in the capital. Yet as his mother, grandmother's first response was not to ask after her son, but to criticize him for failing to teach me properly when raising me should have been her responsibility in the first place. Moreover, from the moment I entered the residence, I had shown no disrespect toward any elder. It was indeed inappropriate for me to strike Wan Yi in public, but a responsible elder should first learn the full story, rather than hastily deciding who was right and wrong. Grandmother's behavior had plainly been biased. She looked embarrassed. I know you are all filial children. I merely offered a casual reminder today. Do not think too much about it. Come, stand up and let me take a proper look at you. Wan Yi saw that the 2 slaps she had suffered were about to become meaningless and grabbed grandmother's arm in protest. Grandmother gently brushed her away. It takes 2 to quarrel. Your elder sister has only just returned today, so you should behave yourself as well. My aunt led me to inspect my room, a smile touching the corner of her lips. Eldest young lady truly has a mind of her own. I never expected Wan Yi would one day find herself unable to defend herself against you. My earlier praise of uncle and elder cousin's filial devotion had clearly struck a chord with her, and her manner toward me had softened considerably. I smiled faintly. She is my own younger sister. I understand her better than anyone. These past years, she must have caused you more than a few headaches. My aunt looked at me in surprise. With Wan Yi's temperament, there was no way she could have maintained her act for so many years. Her petty tricks might deceive grandmother, but my aunt was the mistress of the entire residence, and had undoubtedly seen through her long ago. She simply had no wish to involve herself in the affairs of our branch of the family. She pressed her lips into a smile. Now that you have returned, there is no need for me to worry about her anymore. We looked at one another, each harboring our own calculations. It is only that your reputation now. My aunt hesitated. I knew that after I left the capital, Wan Yi had devoted herself to slandering me before everyone. She had painted me as an arrogant, narrow-minded eldest daughter, who envied talent and bullied her siblings whenever anything displeased her. I hear that you returned this time to marry the Xiao family's second son, my aunt said. I only hope the Xiao family will not listen to one side of the story and cause some unexpected trouble. I was unconcerned. Aunt need not worry. I returned under an imperial decree to marry. The Xiao family should not dare be so bold. That is good. My aunt's expression relaxed slightly. I feared this might delay your marriage. It is not that the Hua family ignored the matter, but whoever spread the rumors covered their tracks too well. By the time we heard anything, it was already too late. Her words sounded concerned, but there was little actual worry in her tone. After all, the conflict between my sister and me had nothing to do with her. At worst, grandmother would handle it. There was no need for my aunt to trouble herself. I do not blame you or grandmother. I blame only the person who spread those rumors. Ruining my reputation is a small matter, but the entire Hua family will be implicated. Outsiders will say that the Hua family lacks proper discipline and does not know how to raise its children. Elder cousin is already of marriageable age, yet I hear hardly any matchmakers have come. What a pity for someone both capable and handsome. My aunt's expression changed immediately. After a moment of thought, she gritted her teeth. That wretched girl, how dare she? All her former composure vanished. Wait here. I must go knock some sense into her and warn her not to speak nonsense before outsiders again. She turned and went straight to Wan Yi's courtyard. I gave a cold, mocking smile. People were always like this. Until the pain touched them personally, they never understood that it hurt. My aunt had watched the spectacle for long enough over the years. How could I allow her to remain outside the conflict any longer? Several days later, Grand Princess Qingyang hosted the Pine and Bamboo Elegant Banquet. Famous scholars in the capital, together with young masters and ladies from distinguished families, had all been invited. The moment we arrived at the princess's residence, Wan Yi abandoned me and left me to descend from the carriage alone at the front gates. The steward receiving guests had never met me, so he approached politely. This young lady seems unfamiliar. May I ask which household you come from? I answered calmly. I am Hua Shunqing, eldest daughter of the Hua family. I have just returned to the capital from the border city. Before I finished speaking, gasps rose around me. So that is the Hua family's overbearing eldest young lady. The one who slapped her own sister in the street the moment she returned? Why would the Grand Princess invite such an ill-mannered person? Very good. It seemed my glorious deed from that day had already spread throughout the capital. The steward was startled as well and looked me up and down. I remained perfectly calm, smiling at him with proper courtesy. He could only step aside. Eldest Miss Hua, this way please. After I entered the princess's residence, The noble ladies and matrons kept far away from me. Not one person approached to speak. I knew no one and had no one to introduce me, so I wandered alone. Just then, I saw Wan Yi among the crowd. Wearing an aggrieved expression, she was speaking to several ladies and young women beside her, all of whom looked sympathetic. I did not need to hear her to know that she was maligning me again. Wan Yi, I have been searching everywhere for you. Why are you here? I called loudly and strode toward her. Every eye immediately turned to me. Wan Yi had probably never expected me to be so shameless. She had deliberately avoided me, yet I had taken the initiative to follow her. She took 2 steps back, alarm and fear written across her face. As expected, someone immediately stepped forward to defend the supposedly wronged party. A young lady blocked my path. You are Hua Shunqing? With us here, do not even think of bullying Wan Yi again. The other women also glared at me indignantly. Wan Yi hid behind them, a smug smile appearing on her face. I looked at the young lady in confusion. Do you know me? No. Then have you ever personally seen me bully Wan Yi? No, I have not. But the entire capital knows that on the day you returned, you slapped her in the middle of the street. She is my own younger sister. Do you know why I disregarded appearances and struck her in public? I do not know. It must be because you are arrogant and willful. I shook my head. You do not know me, you know nothing about my family, and you do not know what happened that day. Why then, are you so certain that everything was my fault? The young lady was rendered speechless. I have been away from the capital for many years. I always admired the imperial capital, believing its people were fair and understood propriety. Only today have I learned that people here can also ignore right and wrong and blindly believe one-sided accusations. I sighed regretfully. Those words made everyone exchange looks, uncertain how to respond. Could it be that eldest Miss Hua is not as the rumors claim and truly has some difficulties she cannot explain? Do not let her deceive you. I personally saw her slap Wan Yi that day. Whatever hardship she had, she should not have humiliated someone like that. For a time, opinions divided. At least no one joined together to condemn me as before. Wan Yi was so anxious that she nearly stamped her foot. Just then, a voice sounded. Oh? I would also like to hear what unspeakable hardship eldest Miss Hua has suffered. The crowd parted to either side. 2 noble women of exceptional bearing walked forward slowly. One was the host of today's banquet, Grand Princess Qingyang. The other was the current Empress's sister-in-law, my future mother-in-law and the mistress of the Xiao household, Madame Xiao. I hurried forward and bowed. The Grand Princess smiled and nodded lightly. Madame Xiao remained cold and indifferent. It seemed she was far from satisfied with me as her future daughter-in-law. My marriage agreement with the Xiao family had been arranged by my parents while they were still alive. At that time, my father's was still a renowned general whose reputation shook the realm. The 2 families had originally agreed that the Hua family's eldest daughter would marry the Xiao family's eldest son. Later, both my parents died. Wan Yi and I could only depend on grandmother and uncle. The Xiao family deliberately blurred the identity of the betrothed son and changed my intended husband to their second son. I understood why. They did not want the position of future eldest daughter-in-law, the woman who would inherit the Xiao family estate alongside their eldest son, to fall into the hands of an orphan without support. At the time, uncle had said, if it is the second son, then so be it. The Xiao family is still a respectable household. Afterward, I followed uncle to the border city, while my reputation in the capital steadily worsened. The Xiao family never mentioned the marriage again. I had assumed the matter would simply fade away. Yet when I reached marriageable age, an imperial decree arrived in the capital. The emperor declared that I was the descendant of a meritorious official and that the court could not neglect me. Hearing that I had a marriage agreement with the Xiao family, he wished to display imperial benevolence and specially ordered me to return to the capital to marry. The Xiao family did not dare defy the decree, but they were not necessarily pleased. I had been back in the capital for several days, yet they had made no move at all. Everyone understood the Xiao family's attitude. Seeing the 2 sides meet today, they all waited eagerly for a spectacle. When the Grand Princess questioned me, I smiled bitterly. This is my first visit to your Highness's residence. No one guided me or introduced me to the other guests, and everyone avoided me as though I were dangerous. I left the capital as a child, so I truly do not know when I offended them. The Grand Princess raised an eyebrow. Are you blaming me for failing to receive my guests properly? I would not dare, Your Highness. I grew up at the frontier and am unfamiliar with the capital's rules. I only believed Your Highness was generous enough not to take offense at my clumsiness. I did not panic under her questioning. With the Grand Princess's permission, I would like to ask everyone present a question. What exactly have I done to make you despise me so deeply? I would also like to know so that I may correct myself. The courtyard immediately fell silent. Such things were usually done in secret, gossiping behind someone's back, forming cliques and isolating her. Who would openly state them to her face? Only someone like me, supposedly ignorant of worldly tact, would ask such an innocent question. Perhaps this was also the Grand Princess's first time encountering such a situation. Rather than becoming angry, she found it interesting. Since eldest Miss Huis has asked, you may speak, otherwise I may be blamed for neglecting an honored guest. A young lady could no longer hold back. I heard that eldest Miss Huis has been domineering since childhood and often bullied her younger relatives. Is that true? Oh? I looked at her. Which younger relative did I bully? What did I do that was so outrageous? Do you know? The young lady glanced toward Wan Yi. You frequently beat and scolded your brothers and sisters. I heard that one winter you pushed your cousin into icy water and also beat Wan Yi. I looked confused, thought for a long moment, and then suddenly understood. Could you mean the incident when Wan Yi was 4 and set our cousin's padded coat on fire with an incense stick? There were no adults nearby. When I saw the flames catch on elder cousin's clothes, I panicked and pushed him into a large water vat to extinguish them. Afterward, I was furious that Wan Yi did not understand the seriousness of what she had done, so I disciplined her. In truth, Wan Yi had deliberately burned Hua Chen's coat because she was jealous that grandmother favored him. I had simply caught her in the act. Everyone looked at one another. This account was entirely different from what they had heard. If you do not believe me, you may ask grandmother and aunt. We were young then, but all the elders and servants in the residence still remember. Afterward, father punished Wan Yi by making her kneel in the ancestral hall. If what I said was true, any family would have punished such a reckless child. Then, what about the fact that you always targeted her? Another person asked. In front of everyone, you knocked over the birthday dessert she prepared for your cousin and humiliated her. You also took her gold necklace and gave it away. Oh, I stared at Wan Yi, who was peeking from behind the crowd. You mean our cousin's birthday celebration? Wan Yi clearly knew that cousin could not eat almonds, yet she deliberately brought her a bowl of almond sweet soup. I knocked it over only because cousin was about to eat it. Afterward, my maternal aunt became furious and insisted that father punish Wan Yi. I was the one who protected her. I gave cousin one of the gold necklaces mother had commissioned for us, and only then was the matter settled. But the necklace I gave away was mine. Wan Yi's remained untouched in its box. I did beat her severely afterward. She had tried to harm cousin simply because cousin was sweet-tongued, well-loved, and received more attention. How could I have let Wan Yi off after such a malicious act? If you do not believe me, visit my maternal uncle's residence and ask. Even now, they still shudder when they remember what happened. Everyone stared in shock, uncertain whom to believe. At last, Wan Yi could no longer endure it and stepped forward herself. But ever since childhood, you struck and punished me at the slightest provocation. When I wanted to see mother, you blocked me outside her door, forbade me from crying, and threatened to sell me to child traffickers if I continued. I laughed coldly. Wan Yi, do you truly not remember? Mother was gravely ill at the time, yet every day you cried and demanded that she hold you. So that she could rest and recover, I could only keep you outside and coax you with fruit. Nothing worked. You screamed without stopping. If I had not frightened you a little, how would you ever have quieted down? But, Wan Yi glared at me unwillingly, yet could not continue. The people around her were already looking at her differently. My account was firm and precise. I had clearly stated the time, place, and witnesses. I was entirely unafraid of anyone verifying my words, and they naturally believed most of what I said. If my account was true, then none of the beatings Wan Yi had received had been unjustified. Wan Yi, you were very young then. It was normal for you not to understand the consequences of your actions. I always believed that we were sisters and family, and that sooner or later you would understand my intentions. I never expected you to spread such fabrications about me outside the residence. Heartbroken, I sighed. Being an elder sister is truly difficult. Wan Yi's face twisted with anger. If that is so, Madame Xiao suddenly said after remaining silent, many people personally saw you slap your sister in the street. Are you claiming that was also a misunderstanding? It seemed that she was not merely dissatisfied with me. She did not want me to restore my reputation before everyone. I glanced at Wan Yi, appearing hesitant to speak. That is a private family matter. I cannot explain it. In any case, I acted rashly that day. I admit my fault and apologize to my sister. Can rashness excuse slapping your own sister? I have never heard of such a thing. If every noble young lady in the capital behaved like you, what would become of proper conduct? Madame Xiao plainly had no intention of letting me go. Madame is absolutely right. Everything was my fault. I must not only apologize to my sister. When I return home, I must also ask grandmother to punish me. I never mentioned the cause and simply accepted all blame. I had behaved nothing like this only moments earlier. Everyone present could not help suspecting that Wang Yi must have done something improper and placed me in a situation I could not discuss. I said nothing. Wang Yi wanted to defend herself but did not know where to begin. Her face flushed crimson. Madame Xiao's relentless questioning also seemed excessive, so no one supported her. Just then, Grand Princess Qingyang lightly took Madame Xiao's arm. Enough. This is my pine and bamboo elegant banquet, not a trial before the 3 judicial offices. Stop pursuing the Hua family's private affairs. Madame Xiao looked embarrassed. I was merely meddling. Come, let us have tea. After that incident, everyone's attitude toward me softened considerably. Some nodded in greeting, some warmly guided me to the banquet. Others, especially those fond of gossip, secretly asked me questions. Eldest Miss Hua, did you truly have an unspeakable reason for slapping Wang Yi that day? I only smiled and did not answer. What unspeakable reason could there be? She had angered me, so of course she deserved to be struck. At the time, I simply had not yet thought of a suitable excuse. If Wang Yi learned the truth, she would probably be furious beyond words. After the banquet ended, Grand Princess Qingyang received me in the inner courtyard of her residence. You handled today's confrontation beautifully. I had worried that after returning to the capital with such a reputation, you would have no way to establish yourself. She looked at me with satisfaction. I must thank your highness for assisting me. Only because of your highness did I have the chance to clear my name. I bowed respectfully. Had the people outside witnessed this scene, their jaws would likely have dropped. No one would have connected an imperial princess of exalted birth with an orphan like me, who had been away from the capital for 5 years. In truth, Grand Princess Qingyang was my real master. Years ago, she had taken notice of me and instructed uncle to bring me into the military camp for training. On the surface, I had returned to the capital under imperial orders to marry. In reality, uncle had sent me back to serve at the Grand Princess's side. She had invited me to the banquet for 2 reasons. First, she wanted to give me an opportunity to make a public appearance. Second, she wanted to test my ability. If I could not establish myself in the capital merely because Wang Yi had slandered me, then I was unqualified to work for the Grand Princess. It seems my judgment was indeed correct. You did not disappoint me, she said with a smile. However, your future mother-in-law does not seem to like you very much, I replied calmly. She does not approve of me, and I have no desire to marry into a more prestigious family. Who says a woman must marry? I only hope that one day your highness will grant me an official position or title. When that day comes, who would care about becoming the Xiao family's daughter-in-law? Nonsense again. The Grand Princess rebuked me aloud, but her face brightened. My words had struck directly at the heart of her ambition. Who could confer offices and titles upon others? Naturally, only the sovereign who ruled the entire realm. Furthermore, if the Grand Princess's great undertaking succeeded one day, the first people she would remove were the Empress and the Crown Prince. If I married into the Xiao family, would I not be walking willingly toward ruin? My answer had satisfied her test of loyalty. The approval in her gaze deepened. As soon as I left the princess's residence, I saw a carriage waiting outside the gate. Eldest Miss Hua, please wait. A handsome young man stepped down from the carriage. I narrowed my eyes and examined him for a moment. Could you be Xiao Sun? He was my betrothed, the Xiao family's second son. We have never met. How did eldest Miss Hua recognize me? He asked in surprise. I smiled. You greatly resemble your elder brother. The smile on Xiao Sun's face stiffened. You are very familiar with my elder brother? How could I not be? Originally, the Xiao family's eldest son, Xiao Yun, had been my intended husband. When we were children, I had disliked his frail scholarly appearance and secretly challenged him. I declared that if he wished to marry me, he would first have to defeat me in a fight. He refused to accept such humiliation and said he would teach me a lesson. Naturally, I beat him until he conceded defeat completely. From then on, whenever we met, he constantly called me Sister Shunqing and tried eagerly to please me. While my parents were alive, Madame Xiao had even laughed and said that even the hardest person eventually meets their match. Since the two of us had been so close since childhood, ours must be a union ordained by heaven. Yet the moment circumstances changed, she married Xiao Yun to another well-born young lady and calmly claimed that the person promised to the Xiao family had always been their second son. I held no romantic feelings for Xiao Yun, but the matter still left me displeased. Why should I stake my entire future on the Xiao family when I am perfectly capable on my own? We were not especially close. I met him only a few times and remember his face, I said casually. Why has second young Master Xiao sought me today? If you wish to discuss the wedding, speak with my aunt and the household steward. I do not concern myself with such trivial matters. Xiaoxun's expression became strange. Eldest Miss Hua is remarkably confident. Are you so certain I will marry you? I widened my eyes. Why would you not? Do you intend to defy the imperial decree? Do not forget your present reputation. My mother need only enter the palace and ask my aunt, the empress, for help. The engagement could be cancelled at once. Perhaps he had never met a noble young lady who spoke as directly as I did. Xiaoxun gritted his teeth. When I remained silent, he thought he had frightened me and immediately became smug. I also attended the banquet at the princess's residence. I saw everything eldest Miss Hua did. You are sharp-tongued and skilled at twisting right and wrong. You may deceive others, but you cannot deceive me. Our Xiao family will never marry a woman of questionable character. I had long known that the Xiao family found the present me offensive. They were searching for every possible means to end the engagement, yet they did not want to be accused of abandoning a poorer match after her family declined, nor did they wish to bear the crime of defying an imperial decree. Therefore, all fault had to be placed upon me. Madame Xiao had deliberately treated me coldly at the banquet. Now she had sent Xiaoxun to intimidate me, all to make me retreat of my own accord. I laughed coldly. I never knew the Xiao family possessed such influence that even His Majesty's decree could be changed at will. Tell me, second young master, were those words your own, the will of the Xiao elders, or the Empress's intention? You must not slander us. When did I say such a thing? Xiaosong began to panic. I shook my head. This second son of the Xiao family not only lacked character, he was not particularly clever either. The Hua family has honored its agreement with the Xiao family, and would never dare disregard the emperor's favor. That is why uncle sent me thousands of miles back to the capital to marry. Yet the Xiao family sent you here to humiliate me. Even if you refuse to seek an audience with His Majesty, I must go before the throne and accuse you myself. I turned and walked away. Behind me came Xiaoxun's furious, helpless shout. Huashun Qing, who gave you that name? There is nothing obedient about you. You are plainly nothing but a thorn. I, Xiaoxun, will never marry a woman like you. My name had naturally been chosen by my parents. From the age of 3, I had disliked following conventions. I submitted only to reason and never to rules. My martial talent was also excellent, having fully inherited the Hua family's gifts. Back then I feared neither heaven nor earth. My parents worried that such a temperament would cause me to suffer in the future, so they changed my name to Shun Qing, hoping I would become more obedient and gentle. Even they could not have foreseen that our branch of the Hua family would later decline, or that Wan Yi and I would become orphans. Afterward, I saw both kindness and cruelty in people, and I learned to read their expressions and hide my sharper edges. Then I trained for 5 years in the border city under uncle. I was no longer the reckless eldest daughter I had once been. I understood clearly that confronting rules head-on would only harm me. True ability meant using the rules themselves to defeat those who hid behind them. From the moment the imperial decree ordered me to marry the Xiao family's second son, uncle and I knew we could not resist. The emperor still distrusted uncle, who commanded a large army at the border. He knew that uncle treated me like his own daughter, and that many of my late father's former subordinates still served in the frontier forces. His Majesty wished to use the old engagement to tie the Hua and Xiao families to the same political camp, ensuring that we could support only the crown prince. The slightest sign of dissatisfaction from us would immediately arouse imperial suspicion. Uncle had been worried. If we truly become related by marriage to the Xiao family, the Grand Princess will also have reservations about us. I shook my head. We need not do anything. The Xiao family will find a way to cancel the marriage themselves. Uncle was still uneasy. Not necessarily. If anyone in the Xiao family still understands the political stakes, this matter may not be simple. His concern was reasonable. The one person in the Xiao family who understood the political stakes arrived early the next morning. Xiao Yun, the eldest son, dragged Xiaoxun to the Hua residence to apologize. My younger brother is impulsive, and spoke many disrespectful words to eldest Miss Hua yesterday. I hope she will be magnanimous and forgive him. The moment we met, Xiao Yun bowed deeply. Xiaoxun looked entirely unwilling. He had probably been warned repeatedly at home and could only mutter under his breath. I spoke nonsense yesterday. I hope you will not take it to heart. Grandmother personally received them and appeared flattered. She had always believed that my marriage into the Xiao family was a fortunate rise in status. Oh, there is no need for such formality. Young people exchange a few angry words all the time. It was hardly worth both of you coming in person. Rest assured, Shunqing will not hold a grudge. Contempt flashed through Xiaoshun's eyes, as though he had expected exactly that response. Xiaoyun was far more cautious. We should still invite eldest Miss Hua here. My brother must apologize to her in person. Only after she forgives him can this matter be settled. Wan Yi, who stood nearby serving the elders, curled her lip and seemed ready to speak. One glance from grandmother forced her to swallow her words. After returning from the banquet the previous day, I had recounted everything that happened to grandmother. My aunt supported me, explaining that Wan Yi had damaged not only my reputation but the reputation of the entire Hua family and could implicate the whole clan. Only then had grandmother understood the seriousness of the matter. She scolded Wan Yi fiercely and strictly forbade her from speaking carelessly outside again. After only one night, Wan Yi no longer dared act recklessly. At least not before grandmother, where she still had to pretend to be obedient. At Xiaoyun's insistence, grandmother sent someone to summon me. At that moment, I was teaching Huaning to use a staff. His thin legs trembled violently, and he complained without pause. When he heard that Xiaoyun had asked to see me, he sighed with relief as though he had been granted a reprieve. I gave him a stern look. Maintain your horse stance, I will return shortly. Huaning immediately let out a miserable groan. Complain again and I will add another 2 hours of training. Huaning's eyes widened in terror. He clamped his mouth shut at once. How could such an overbearing and despotic woman become my wife? Xiaoshun followed the servant into the courtyard and stamped his foot in frustration the moment he arrived. Xiaoshun, mind your words, Xiaoyun rebuked softly. Do not forget why you came today. Xiaoshun reluctantly fell silent. You do not know what kind of person she is. Do not judge her casually. As Xiaoyun turned, he caught sight of me watching the two brothers with a faint, knowing smile. His face reddened slightly. Shun, eldest Miss Hua, I brought my brother here today to apologize. I hope you will not take yesterday's words to heart. I made no attempt to conceal my mockery. So second young Master Xiao is still only a child, not merely young and reckless, but unable to choose his words and requiring his elder brother to lead him here by the hand to apologize. Xiao Sun's face turned bright red. How dare you be so rude? He turned to leave but Xiaoyun seized him. You were rude first. Apologize at once. Must you truly be beaten before you learn? After speaking, Xiaoyun looked at me with lingering fear, as if still haunted by our childhood encounter. I laughed. We are no longer children. How could I strike people at every turn? By saying that, are you not giving others more material for rumors? Seeing me smile, Xiaoyun cautiously continued. I do not believe the rumors outside. I understand you. You have never acted without reason. Xiaoshun is young and impulsive, which is why he spoke so disrespectfully. He knows he was wrong. The Xiao family came today in all sincerity to apologize. Who was he trying to fool? If they had sincerely wished to apologize, Madame Xiao should have brought both brothers herself. Instead, she had sent Xiaoyun to exploit our old affection. I revealed none of my thoughts. Then second young master has reconsidered and no longer intends to ask the empress to persuade his majesty to revoke the decree? Xiaoyun smiled bitterly. How could the Xiao family possess such influence? If the empress learned of this, she would punish us severely. The marriage between the Xiao and Hua families was personally decreed by His Majesty. It is already settled. The Xiao family would never cancel it. That is good. Second young master's words yesterday were deeply hurtful. Fortunately, the Xiao family still has someone who understands reason. It is only a pity. I looked meaningfully at Xiaoyun. He immediately became flustered and lowered his gaze. The brothers soon took their leave. After they exited the Hua garden, I followed quietly and heard Xiaoshun complain. Elder brother, why are you so afraid of Hua Shunqing? Xiaoyun sighed. You do not understand. The Xiao family wronged her first. Elder brother, could you still do not speak nonsense? She is your betrothed. Such words would damage her reputation. We merely shared some childhood affection, so I understand her better than others. In truth, she is a very good young woman. Their voices gradually faded. I stood behind the courtyard wall, remembering those reckless youthful days. One corner of my mouth slowly lifted. So Xiun still harbored such thoughts. Not long after the brothers left, one of my people in the outer courtyard came to report. Second young lady has ordered a carriage and gone out. The smile vanished from my face, and coldness settled between my brows. My people followed Wan Yi's carriage all the way to the largest restaurant in the western part of the capital. She got out at the rear entrance and slipped inside furtively. I did not follow her inside, the man reported. However, a Xiao family carriage was parked at the front. The person waiting near the door seemed to be second young Master Xiao's attendant. Should I investigate further? Very good. Since when had those two joined forces? There is no need, I said calmly. News will arrive shortly. The true owner of that restaurant was Grand Princess Qingyang. It had always been used to collect information. After my return to the capital, she had placed it under my management. Those two fools had chosen their meeting place remarkably well. They had practically delivered themselves into my hands. Before dinner, Wang Yi returned. After changing her clothes, she came to my courtyard. Elder sister, I have come to apologize. Everything before was caused by my pettiness. I created so much trouble for you and the Hua family. Please be the bigger person and forgive me. I gave her a faint, mocking smile. Has the sun risen in the west? Speak. What scheme are you planning now? Wang Yi looked aggrieved. Will elder sister never trust me again? Our parents died early, and you were always too strict with me. I was young then, so resentment grew in my heart. Grandmother and aunt have both counseled me. They said that you will marry into the Xiao family and become related to the imperial clan. With you supporting me, my own status will rise and I will surely marry into a good family. If your reputation is poor, I will also be implicated. Only then did I truly awaken. I did so many foolish things before. Is it too late for me to repent? So she understood everything perfectly. Yet she had still chosen to do things that harmed both others and herself. Her obsession with taking revenge upon me had become incurable. She was even willing to collude with Xiao Xun. It was because I had shown mercy again and again that she had never received a true lesson. This time, she would pay for her own stupidity and obstinacy. Outwardly, I remained calm. If you have truly understood and will stop doing foolish things, that is naturally good. Hearing my tone soften, Wang Yi immediately brightened. Elder sister, as long as you put the past aside, I am willing to do anything. She signaled to the maid behind her, who brought forward an exquisite wooden box. You lived at the border for so many years and probably have few decent ornaments. Mother once left me a floral hairpin. I have never worn it. Today I will offer it to you as an apology. She opened the box. Inside lay what appeared to be a solid gold 100-flower hairpin. What looked like tiny rubies were set in the flower centers, and its workmanship appeared dazzlingly intricate. Few women could have resisted admiring it. My expression shifted slightly. Where did this hairpin come from? Wang Yi secretly studied my face and answered hesitantly. Mother found it in the storeroom years ago. She said there was no use keeping it and gave it to me. It was so valuable that I never dared wear it. Is something wrong with it? This golden hairpin was one of the gifts Xiao Yun had sent me long ago. After our engagement was arranged, he would have presents delivered to the Hua residence every few days. I had never cared much about clothes or jewelry, so mother stored everything for me. After father died, the Xiao family's changed attitude seemed to give mother an ominous feeling. She gathered every item Xiao Yun had given me, packed them separately, and stored them away. Later, after I went to the frontier and Xiao Yun married another woman, I wrote home instructing the family to return all his gifts to the Xiao residence. I had not expected this single hairpin to be overlooked. If you are sincere, I will accept it. I did my best to control my expression, but Wang Yi still caught a flicker of emotion on my face. As long as elder sister accepts it, I can be at ease. A knowing smile appeared on her lips. That evening, I examined the hairpin carefully and discovered that several stones had fallen from the centers of the small golden flowers along its edge. Early the next morning, Wang Yi hurried into my courtyard carrying a small brocade box. Several red stones lay inside. It is all my fault. I failed to store it carefully. Only after returning yesterday did I discover that several stones had fallen to the bottom of the box. It is nothing. We can find a skilled jeweler and have the stones reset. Wang Yi lifted the hairpin and examined it closely. From the workmanship alone, one can tell it was not made by an ordinary shop. If we choose carelessly, they may ruin it. I looked troubled. I have been away from the capital too long. How would I know which jeweler is reliable? Why not recommend one to me? I do know a shop with an excellent reputation. It is an old establishment visited by many ladies from prominent families. You could try it. I nodded, not missing the flash of triumph in her eyes. On the appointed day, I pretended not to know my way around the capital and asked Wang Yi to accompany me. She probably wished to witness me falling into the trap, so after only a moment's hesitation, she agreed. At the jewelry shop, I gave instructions to an assistant and was invited into a small reception room. To my surprise, someone was already seated inside. Hearing the door open, he turned. Our eyes met and both of us froze. Xiao Yun? Shunqing? Why are you here? At once, we both sensed that something was wrong. I came with Wan Yi to repair an ornament. Xiaoxun asked me to accompany him while he selected several pieces for the betrothal gifts. Xiaoxun, Hua Wan Yi. The coincidence was too perfect. A commotion suddenly erupted outside. Just then, Xiao Yun's trusted guard rushed in. Eldest young master, Madam has arrived. He meant Xiao Yun's wife, Madam Xu. Why would she come here? Xiao Yun looked even more astonished. There was nothing difficult to understand. Madame Xu had come to catch her husband in a secret rendezvous, naturally because someone had lured her here. I sat down calmly and poured myself a cup of tea. Should eldest young master Xiao not go outside and see what is happening? Xiao Yun left with his face dark with anger. He did not return for a long time. Madame Xu had indeed arrived, but the illicit meeting she discovered was not between Xiao Yun and me. Leading a crowd of maids and servants, she stormed over and threw open the door of another room and found Xiaoxun and Wan Yi inside. At that moment, Wan Yi was hurrying out and collided directly with her. You two, Madame Xu stared suspiciously. She clearly remembered that the woman promised to Xiaoxun was supposed to be the Hua family's eldest daughter. Yet the person alone with her brother-in-law was the second daughter. Although they had done nothing, an unmarried man and woman had been found alone in the same room without a single servant present. No explanation would have convinced the onlookers. Xiaoxun also panicked. Sister-in-law, why are you here? Where is elder brother? Only then did Madame Xu remember her original purpose and become uncertain what to do. Xiaoxun, what have you done? How dare you ask where I am after this? An angry shout came from behind. Husband, you truly are here? Madame Xu's earlier aggression disappeared. She asked cautiously. Why shouldn't I be here? The better question is why you are here, Xiao Yun demanded with a frown. Madame Xu stammered. She could hardly admit that Xiaoxun had hinted that the Hua family's eldest daughter, once engaged to Xiao Yun, intended to meet him privately, and that her husband might still have feelings for me. Stop making trouble and return home, Xiao Yun ordered in a low voice. Madame Xu still hesitated. Elder brother, where is eldest Miss Hua? Xiaoxun's mind finally cleared enough for him to seize what he thought was his last opportunity. What eldest Miss Hua? Xiao Yun snapped. You have truly lost all judgment. How could you do such a thing? His face was livid. It was difficult to know whether he blamed Xiao Sun for trying to frame me while dragging him into the scheme or for the ambiguous situation between Xiao Sun and Wan Yi. Elder brother, you misunderstand. I was sitting here minding my own business when she rushed inside. There is nothing between us, Xiaoxun argued desperately. Naturally, nothing had happened between them. I had stationed my people inside this jewelry shop long ago. They had not only led Wan Yi into the side room where Xiaoxun waited, but had also directed the furious Madame Xu to the same place. By the time Wan Yi realized something was wrong and tried to leave, it was too late. The most damaging part was that Xiaoxun and Wan Yi had arranged for many witnesses to see Madame Xu catch Xiao Yun and me in a private meeting. Among them were several matrons and noble young ladies whom Wan Yi herself had invited under the pretext of viewing jewelry. Hearing the commotion, they all rushed from their private rooms. Wan Yi was trapped inside. Seeing everyone's shocked expressions and hearing the whispers around her, she nearly burst into tears. It is not what you think. I came here with elder sister. No one listened. An unmarried young woman had been found alone in a room with her elder sister's future husband. Who would not imagine something improper? Do you remember the day eldest Miss Hua returned and slapped Wan Yi in the street? Someone said. Later, Madame Xiao questioned eldest Miss Hua, but she refused to explain and accepted all blame herself. A perceptive young lady seemed to discover a tremendous secret. Yes, exactly. We knew something was wrong at the time. Eldest Miss Hua must already have discovered this. Everyone suddenly believed they understood. Eldest Miss Hua is truly pitiful. For the sake of her sister and the family's reputation, she endured humiliation in silence. Yet these two have no sense of shame, and dared do this before her very eyes. Disdain appeared on every face. I did not. You have all misunderstood. Wan Yi's entire body went weak. Once the commotion had drawn enough attention, I finally parted the crowd and entered. The moment she saw me, Wan Yi pointed at me and screamed. Hua Shunqing arranged to meet Xiao Yun privately today, and made me come with her. She has always kept the token Xiao Yun gave her years ago. If you do not believe me, ask the shopkeeper to bring it out. Xiao Yun looked bewildered. Before I could speak, Madame Xu gritted her teeth. Shopkeeper, bring out the ornament eldest Miss Hua submitted earlier. The trembling shopkeeper hurriedly ordered an assistant to present it before everyone. Look. It is this golden 100-flower hairpin, Wan Yi declared with certainty, as if she held irrefutable evidence. Madame Xu's expression became peculiar. This is what you mean? The Xiao family was related to the imperial clan and certainly wealthy. Every new year they commissioned batches of auspicious jewelry and trinkets to distribute as rewards. This hairpin was modeled after plum blossoms and called the Five Blessings Plum Blossom Hairpin. It was one of those mass-produced gifts. It looked magnificent, but in truth it was only gilded on the outside and made of copper within. No one knew how many identical pieces remained in the Xiao storerooms. Years ago Xiao Yun had brought it to me and said I could use it to reward servants. I casually tossed it aside. Mother had not allowed us to keep any of the truly valuable gifts. She stored them carefully and later instructed me to return everyone to the Xiao family. Perhaps she knew this object had little value and left it for Wang Yi to play with. Wang Yi was too young to know any of that history. Having rarely seen fine objects, she had mistaken it for one of the precious betrothal gifts Xiao Yun had once given me. The shopkeeper looked nervously at us. I was about to explain that the pieces set in the flower centers were colored glass, not gemstones, and that the hairpin itself was not solid gold. The entire shop fell silent. Everyone turned toward Wang Yi. If you want to frame someone, you should at least find convincing evidence. Would Xiao Yun truly give such a cheap object as a love token? Wang Yi's face turned ashen. Xiao Shun's expression was even worse. He had trusted her and believed she possessed reliable evidence. Then I began my performance. I looked blankly at Wang Yi and murmured in a voice clear enough for everyone to hear. So you insisted that I come here to repair the hairpin because you wanted me to conceal matters for the two of you? Conceal what? Naturally, the supposed affair between Wang Yi and Xiao Shun, and how would it be concealed? By accusing her own elder sister of meeting another man in secret and shifting everyone's attention. Once the crowd reached that conclusion, anger erupted. Do not believe Hua Shunqing's lies, Wang Yi cried desperately. She told me to come. She went to meet Xiao Yun. Several young ladies protested indignantly. You are the one lying. We clearly saw eldest Miss Hua buying something at the stall outside the shop just now. Only then did everyone notice the oil paper parcel in my right hand. After Xiao Yun left, I had deliberately walked around the shop front so that those preparing to enter would see me. Once all attention shifted to Wang Yi and Xiao Shun, no one would remember precisely when they had seen me. Now I had witnesses. Their testimony made it seem even more certain that Wang Yi had framed me to conceal a secret meeting with Xiao Shun. She could not explain her way out of it. Everyone expected me to slap her again. Instead, I stepped in front of Wang Yi and bowed deeply to the crowd. I, Hua Shunqing, beg everyone not to spread what happened today. Afterward, I will enter the palace and ask His Majesty to change the name in the marriage decree to Hua Wanyi. Then today's meeting will no longer be considered a secret affair between Wang Yi and second young Master Xiao. On behalf of the Hua family and our deceased parents, I thank you all. I forced out every word with visible difficulty, as though barely holding myself together. Everyone was moved. Could a woman truly sacrifice so much for her family and her younger sister's reputation? Compared with everything I appeared willing to sacrifice for her, Wang Yi's behavior seemed utterly inhuman. Many people looked as though they wished to step forward and slap her themselves. Wang Yi stood frozen, uncertain whether to grieve or rejoice. Once the crowd gradually dispersed, Xiao Shun finally seemed to awaken. So this was your scheme? He pointed at Wang Yi, his finger trembling. You said you would help me escape your sister. In truth, you wanted to replace her and seize her place. Wang Yi was speechless again. Dream on. Even if His Majesty punishes me, I will never let you succeed. Xiao Shun's gaze was filled with hatred. Naturally, the name in the imperial marriage decree could not be changed. Before I had even entered the palace gates, the Empress summoned me. Shunqing, rest assured. Only you can become the wife of the Xiao family's second son. That rebellious son entered the palace yesterday and swore that he and your sister had no improper relationship. Everything that happened was merely a misunderstanding. A proud man like Xiao Shun had refused even an imperially arranged marriage. How could he tolerate being manipulated by another person? When I later reported to Grand Princess Qingyang, she laughingly told me that the day after the incident, Xiao Shun had entered the palace to see the Empress. This time he truly risked everything. To prove that he had been framed, he confessed every detail of the earlier scheme between himself and Wang Yi. The Empress nearly fainted with fury. Forgetting all decorum, she slapped him twice. The Grand Princess had countless eyes and ears in the palace. Her intelligence network was remarkably efficient, and she described the scene as vividly as if she had personally witnessed Xiao Shun's miserable appearance. The Empress was neither as arrogant as Madame Xiao, nor as foolish as Xiao Shun. She surely understood the Emperor's purpose, which was why she became even angrier. She was furious that her own family did not understand the situation or put the family's political interests first. But I was not someone they could mold however they pleased. Xiao Shun had bullied me openly. How could I let him off so easily? Your Majesty, what will become of my younger sister? I asked. So many people witnessed what happened yesterday. If the Xiao family does nothing, would that not drive her toward death? The Hua family's reputation will also be destroyed. The Empress hesitated for a long time. If you agree, the second son can take your sister as a concubine. What? My eyebrows shot up. Your Majesty wishes my sister to become his concubine, so that we two sisters serve the same husband? Although our parents are dead, the Hua family still has uncle and retains the military prestige it built over many years. The Xiao family wants both legitimate daughters of the Hua family's eldest branch to marry Xiao Shun. Their shamelessness is astonishing. Your sister's reputation has become what it is. If she does not marry the second son, whom else can she marry? The Empress abandoned all pretense. Moreover, your marriage to him was personally decreed by His Majesty and cannot be changed. Tell me then, what better solution exists? I stared at her for a long moment. Your Majesty, I do not agree. If the Xiao family insists that I marry Xiao Shun, then this marriage will not create an alliance. It will create an enemy. The Empress was startled. She had not expected me to be so bold. But after thinking carefully, she understood that I was not making an empty threat. The Crown Prince needed the Hua family's support. Yet because of Xiao Shun's stupidity, both Hua daughters would be ruined within the Xiao household. Two sisters sharing one husband would not only be an insult I could never swallow. It would also make the Hua family the laughingstock of the capital. Would the Hua family still willingly support the Crown Prince then? While both sides remained deadlocked, a palace attendant entered to report. Xiao Yun requests an audience. After leaving the palace, Xiao Yun went directly to the Hua residence to find me. I did not know what he had said to the Empress. I saw only remorse on his face. Shun Qing, you need not worry. I will not allow you to suffer such humiliation. I have already spoken with Her Majesty and asked her to find a way to cancel this marriage. I looked surprised. Are you truly willing to do that for me? Xiao Yun lowered his head. The Xiao family has already failed you once. We cannot wrong you again. My brother, as he is now, is unworthy of you. When I remained silent, he looked even more ashamed. I know your temperament. You could never endure this insult. Rest assured, I will persuade parents. I only fear that doing so may ruin your marriage prospects for life. I smiled softly. What if I told you that instead of regretting not marrying Xiao Shun, I feel relieved? Would you believe me? He stared at me blankly. Especially after seeing you again, I became even more certain that Xiao Shun is not someone with whom I could spend my life. He only resembles you a little. Xiao's face immediately crimson. Shun Qing, you must mind your words. I already have a wife. I looked at him with quiet disappointment. I know, I have done nothing. Am I not even allowed to think? As I spoke, I drew a flawless piece of white nephrite from my robe, the prized stone known as mutton fat jade, and stroked it gently. Wan Yi said that I had always kept the token you gave me. In truth, that part was not entirely false. She simply did not know that the real token was this jade. Xiao Yun's eyes widened. You still kept it? Yes. I looked up at him. I have carried it with me since you gave it to me when I was 7. He stared at me in a daze. Shun Qing, I also had no choice. I understand. I have never blamed you. I blame only fate for toying with us. We stood at a decorous distance, gazing at one another. Feelings had stirred between us, but we kept them within the bounds of propriety. A quiet, unspoken tenderness passed between us. After a long time, Xiao Yun turned away. I will return to the Xiao residence immediately and persuade my parents to find a way to cancel the engagement. I did not know how he accomplished it, but the Xiao family made a ruthless sacrifice to save themselves. They petitioned the emperor, claiming that Xiao Shun had suddenly contracted a fatal illness and might not survive. They did not wish to ruin my lifelong prospects and therefore begged His Majesty to revoke the marriage decree. Naturally, the emperor did not believe them. He sent several groups of imperial physicians to examine Xiao Shun. Each returned and reported that the young man truly did not have long to live. The empress also pleaded repeatedly. In the end, the emperor reluctantly withdrew the decree. I heard that immediately after the new decree was issued, the Xiao family sent Xiao Shun back to their ancestral countryside to recover. Whether his illness was real or feigned, he could never appear in public again. Otherwise, the family would be guilty of deceiving the emperor. His future was effectively over. The Xiao family had demonstrated its sincerity. Now it was the Hua family's turn. After the incident at the jewelry shop, Wan Yi had completely lost her reputation in the capital. Uncle was absent from the capital, so the clan elders made the decision. She would either be given white silk or poisoned wine, or she would be sent to a nunnery and spend the rest of her life before a lonely lamp and Buddhist altar. Only then did Wan Yi become truly afraid. She clung tightly to grandmother and sobbed, begging to be saved. Grandmother only shook her head and sighed. My aunt could barely be bothered to look at her. At last, Wan Yi fell to her knees before me and repeatedly struck her forehead against the floor, begging me to intercede with the Shai family. She was willing to become a concubine. I laughed coldly. The Xiao family would rather sacrifice Xiao Xin than allow you through their gates. Do you still not understand what they think of you? From the moment you decided to harm someone else, you should have considered today's outcome. Had her plan succeeded, I would have been the one kneeling on the ground. I felt no pity whatsoever. In the end, grandmother decided to send her to a nunnery, shave her head, and make her take religious vows. The servants came forward and dragged away Wan Yi, whose body had gone limp with despair. In the end, the Xiao and Hua families did not become relatives by marriage. Madame Xiao fell ill after her younger son was disgraced and removed from public life, while she herself became an object of ridicule. People now mocked Madame Xiao for having condemned me so aggressively when her own son had behaved improperly with his betrothed's younger sister. She had criticized another family, despite failing to manage her own. As the Empress's sister-in-law, Madame Xiao had spent many years in an exalted position. She had never endured such ridicule. This illness left her confined to bed for a long time. Everyone assumed the Xiao and Hua families had formed an irreconcilable feud. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yun and I began meeting more frequently in private. We both observed propriety and never crossed any boundary. He often invited me out to talk and showed attentive concern for me. We conversed easily and sometimes discussed Uncle's military affairs. Quietly, I mobilized the Hua family's forces within the army on several occasions and helped the Crown Prince resolve certain small difficulties. As a result, Xiao Yun received greater favor from both the Empress and the Crown Prince. Within the Xiao family, nearly everyone now followed his lead. He felt both grateful and ashamed. Shunqing, you do not need to do these things for me. I am with you not because of what you can offer. I lowered my eyes with carefully feigned shyness. I understand. I simply wish to do them. He sighed, visibly moved. When the Crown Prince ascends the throne, he will surely remember the Hua family service. Your uncle's prospects will be limitless, and His Majesty can also arrange an excellent marriage for you. I showed little interest. But I do not want to marry. He smiled at me. What a foolish young woman. 2 years passed. I had passed the usual marriageable age, yet still showed no intention of choosing a husband. Only then did Xiao Yun realize I was serious. Our relationship had become increasingly complicated and ambiguous. Although we no longer had any formal connection, I had somehow become the person he trusted most. The Empress and Crown Prince also seemed to tacitly accept the ambiguity between us, and they became increasingly willing to make use of me. Within only a few years, Uncle and I helped the Crown Prince eliminate, one after another, several princes who posed the greatest threats to him. The Emperor grew older and weaker, while the Crown Prince's position became increasingly secure. At last the Crown Prince removed his final rival, the 7th Prince. He hosted a grand celebration and rewarded those who had served him. Yet Uncle received nothing. I went to Xiao Yun for an explanation. He did not answer my question. He only said calmly, Shunqing, I purchased a residence in the countryside. In a few days I will send someone to take you there. I will never forget the affection you have shown me all these years. I laughed in disbelief and anger. You intend to keep me as your secret mistress? He looked helpless. Shunqing, you always knew that I already have a wife and cannot marry you. You refuse to marry anyone else and have now passed the usual age. This is all I can do for you. At least you will never lack food or clothing for the rest of your life. After he spoke, he lowered his head slightly. 2 men suddenly appeared and forced me down. Xiao Yun, what are you doing? I was both shocked and furious. He looked down at me with pity. Shunqing, this is His Highness the Crown Prince's will. I also have no choice, rest assured. As long as you remain obedient in the future, I will plead with His Highness to spare your life. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. Do not struggle. I know your martial arts are excellent. That is why, whenever we drank tea together, I added a drug that gradually weakened your martial strength. You have already lost more than half of it, and cannot defeat these men. Do not look at me that way. I know how stubborn you are. I was afraid you might be hurt if you resisted. As long as you behave. His words stopped abruptly. I drew the dagger I had concealed and struck before any of them could react. Xiao Yun staggered backward, his moon-white brocade robe stained. The two guards had not seen how I moved. When they rushed at me, I turned and killed both guards with one swift strike each. Xiao Yun sank to the ground, staring at me in disbelief. I spat aside. I had not intended to attack you, but that look on your face just now was infuriating. You will not escape, he forced out before collapsing. I exhaled, opened the door and cried out in alarm. My lords, Xiao Yun plotted rebellion. I discovered it, and he tried to silence me. The commander of the Capital Patrol Office, who had been waiting outside, immediately led his soldiers in. Before meeting Xiao Yun, I had secretly reported that his residence contained extensive evidence of treason. It was not that the Capital Patrol Office believed me too easily. The emperor had already received a secret report from his own agents. The crown prince believed he had eliminated every rival, and that the throne was already within his grasp. Drunk on success, he had spoken many arrogant words at his celebration. The guest list itself was even more alarming. More than half of the court's most powerful officials had attended and raised cups to congratulate him. They had all forgotten one thing: the emperor was old, not dead. The weaker his health became, the greater his suspicion. Even the future heir could not openly reveal an intention to replace him before his death. Grand Princess Qingyang had closely watched every movement in the palace. She immediately seized this opportunity and instructed me to make the accusation. The emperor did not hesitate for even a moment. He ordered the Capital Patrol Office, one of the emperor's most trusted agencies, to conduct a search. That single search uncovered a large body of evidence that the crown prince had colluded with officials, framed other princes, and plotted to seize the throne. Naturally, I had secretly planted half of that evidence in Xiao Yun's study. The emperor flew into a rage. He immediately imprisoned the crown prince and ordered a thorough investigation. As the crown prince was taken away, he still looked bewildered. He had believed that every rival was gone, and that the court was completely under his control. Yet overnight he became a prisoner. When I next saw Xiao Yun, he was in the imperial prison. My strike had not been fatal, leaving him alive to face judgment. He wore prison garb, with his hair hanging in disarray, and glared at me through the wooden bars. Hua Shenqing. From beginning to end, you were merely pretending to care for me. You used me. One corner of my mouth lifted. If you had never intended to harm me, I would never have needed to use you. When did you know? From the day you brought Xiao Shun to my residence to apologize. His pupils contracted. What? From the beginning, the private words you spoke to Xiao Shun that day were deliberately meant for me to hear. You wanted to test my feelings toward you. Years ago, when the Xiao family told him to marry someone else, he had obeyed immediately, without hesitation and without giving me any explanation. Afterward, he had not even met me again. How could a man who understood his own interests so clearly suddenly say, years later, that the Xiao family had wronged me? Such a statement was far too suggestive. When Xiao Shun asked you to accompany him to the jewelry shop, you had surely guessed that the matter concerned me. Yet you still went. What you wanted was to make it impossible for me to become Xiao Shun's wife. Then I would have no choice but to serve your interests. Unfortunately, I saw through it. When Xiao Shun plotted against you, he never imagined that you were also plotting against him. Like the Empress, you understood the Emperor's design. But you were unwilling to let such a valuable alliance fall entirely into your younger brother's hands. Even if you could not possess it yourself, you did not want him to have it. After the initial shock, Xiao Yun gradually calmed and laughed coldly. Xiao Shun is nothing but a useless pleasure-seeking son. My mother is as foolish as he is and never understood His Majesty's true intention. Allowing such a useless man to control an alliance with the Hua family would have squandered its value completely. That is why you used every scheme you could think of to persuade the Empress that you could control me. You made her abandon Xiao Shun and then used some unknown method to ensure that he could never again form a marriage alliance with the Hua family. You expected me to be endlessly grateful and devote myself to you even more completely. A look of defeat and helplessness crossed Xiao Yun's face. Hua Shenqing, I still underestimated you. I thought I controlled you, but you were the one playing the game. I was merely a chess piece you moved at will. I had used him to approach the Crown Prince. By working for the Crown Prince, I gradually mapped the court's complex network of influence. Every time we helped the Crown Prince remove an opponent, Grand Princess Qingyang placed one of her trusted people in the resulting vacancy. In the Crown Prince's name, we cleared every obstacle from the Grand Princess's path to the throne, while he continued congratulating himself. He never knew that even those closest to him were our informants. Otherwise, how could every word he spoke at the victory banquet have reached the Emperor word for word? Xiao Yun gave a bitter, self-mocking laugh. How ridiculous. Even at the end, I still plan to spare your life and hide you away in a private residence. I looked at him quietly. Xiaoyun, you are not a fool. Otherwise, you could not have manipulated Xiaoshun until he nearly lost everything. But your pride as a man destroyed you. You always believed a woman's greatest ambition was to win a man's affection. That is why you never guarded against me. As I turned to leave, Xiaoyun shouted after me. Hua Shenqing, I do not understand why you did all this. No matter how intelligent a woman is, she cannot become a marquis or a general. In the end, she must still depend upon a new master. If so, why did you not choose the crown prince? I had no interest in explaining. You will understand soon. After the crown prince was deposed, the emperor finally discovered that his sons were either dead or disqualified. There was no suitable heir left for the throne. He panicked and urgently summoned Grand Princess Qingyang to the palace. He even considered adopting a boy from another branch of the imperial clan. The Grand Princess looked at him. Brother, you would rather pass the throne to a mere child than consider me? The emperor stared in shock. Only then did he understand the ambition she had concealed and patiently pursued for so many years. He flew into a rage, but it was already too late. His illness could no longer be cured, and the people around him had all become loyal to the Grand Princess. Breathing heavily, he pointed at her. Qingyang, even if you force me to issue a decree, you cannot become emperor. The ministers will not agree. The people of the realm will not agree. The Grand Princess smiled gently. Then brother may watch with his own eyes and see whether the ministers and the people will honor me as emperor. She summoned several senior ministers into the palace. They knelt together before her and acclaimed her as the new sovereign. The Grand Princess was not merely a conspirator who coveted the throne. She genuinely cared about the stability of the realm and the welfare of its people. Naturally, she also attracted truly loyal and capable ministers with foresight. What the people needed was an enlightened ruler capable of governing the realm. Did anyone truly care whether that ruler was a man or a woman? The Grand Princess stood above them, radiating unquestionable authority. The emperor sighed softly. Knowing the situation was lost, he could only write a final decree with trembling hands, passing the throne to Grand Princess Qingyang. By the time the former crown prince was escorted into the palace, the coronation had ended. He stared at the person seated upon the dragon throne for a long time. Qingyang, imperial aunt, it was you. Xiaoyun was brought in behind him. He too stood stunned, until he recognized the second-rank official in court robes standing beside the new emperor. Hua Shenqing? I nodded lightly. You did not expect it, did you? I do not need to depend on any man. I can still rise to the highest ranks of the court and hold command in my own right. This is the future I planned and fought for myself. Even as the former crown prince and Xiaoyun were led away, neither had recovered from the shock. The new emperor sat lazily upon the dragon throne. Are you satisfied now? You specially begged me to preserve their lives so that they could witness what you have become? I looked slightly embarrassed. I am not as broad-minded as your majesty. I had to humiliate them publicly before I could let go of my anger. During the period when I pretended to care for Xiaoyun, his self-righteous manner disgusted me so much that I could barely keep my food down. I deliberately kept him alive so that he could see exactly who I was. It is no matter. Once you have vented your anger, you can work with a clear mind. I still face an enormous burden of state affairs and must rely on Minister Hua. The emperor joked, clearly in excellent spirits. Thank you, your majesty. I will do everything in my power to assist you and will not fail your trust. Naturally, the former crown prince could not be permitted to remain a threat. After he died in custody, the entire Shao household was sentenced to death for complicity in treason. The empress was confined within the palace and died not long afterward from grief and resentment. The greatest remaining danger from the former court was finally removed. The new reign brought renewed energy, and the court brimmed with vitality. As one of the new emperor's trusted officials, I was naturally so busy that my feet barely touched the ground. Uncle was transferred back from the border city to the capital and reunited with his family. Hua Ning's comfortable days officially came to an end. With two powerful officials in one household, the Hua family's position was utterly transformed. After the initial shock of learning that I had become an official, the Hua relatives gradually regained their composure. Alongside their pride, they now treated me with even greater respect and fear. My life was busy, but everything proceeded smoothly. It went so smoothly that I began considering when to bring Wan Yi back from the nunnery. Not because I pitied her, but because I rejected the idea that what she had done should be treated as a crime deserving lifelong disgrace. Why should a woman be disgraced and punished merely because she had been found alone in a room with a man? Years ago, I had exploited those social rules, but I had never respected them. Hua Wanyi certainly deserved discipline. It would be better to bring her back under my watch, where I could supervise and discipline her properly. Thank you for supporting Panda. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring you more amazing stories. Now, let's begin story 2. I transmigrated. At the exact moment I clicked send on the data analysis report for my superior at 3 in the morning, my heart clenched and everything before my eyes went black. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself sitting crookedly inside a bright red bridal sedan chair. A heavy phoenix crown sat on my head, so heavy it felt as if it might snap my neck. Then a flood of strange yet vivid memories poured into my mind. I was now Su Yaoyao, the neglected legitimate daughter of the Su family, the household of the Vice Minister of Personnel. My younger sister, Su Meier, had originally been betrothed to Xiao Jingchuan, the Marquise of Weiwan. But 3 months ago, Xiao Jingchuan was ambushed at the border. Both his legs were crippled, and his temper became violent and bloodthirsty. Rumor said he had already struck down several maidservants simply because they dared to steal a glance at his legs. Su Meier cried and threatened to do something drastic, refusing to marry him no matter what. So Father Su, a man obsessed with empty reputation and clinging to power, drugged me and shoved me into the bridal sedan chair in her place. In everyone else's eyes, marrying Xiao Jingchuan now was no different from stepping 1 foot into the gates of death. But for someone with the soul of a salted fish like me, this was a once-in-a-thousand-years opportunity. A crippled husband? Wonderful. If he was crippled, then he could not consummate the marriage. I could preserve my innocence and would not have to waste energy serving him in bed. A brutal husband? Even better. The fiercer his temper was, the emptier the back courtyard would be. No one would dare come bother me while I slept in. A powerful and wealthy husband? Excellent. The monthly allowance of a marchioness would be more than enough for me to buy melon seeds to crack for 10 lifetimes. In my previous life, I had worked myself to sudden death. In this life, I only wanted to be a quiet, useless little creature. My ultimate goal in the Weiwan Marquise manor was to hold tightly to this marquis as my powerful backer and preserve my life. 3 meals a day, and at night, a little gossip from around the world. The dull creak of a wooden door being pushed open dragged me back to reality. The wedding attendant had already helped me into the bridal chamber. The room was filled with the lingering scent of sandalwood, mixed with the bitter tang of medicine. Everyone withdrew, leaving me seated alone on the wedding bed. My heart beat a little faster. After all, I was facing a living god of slaughter. It would be a lie to say I was not nervous. A cold gust brushed past me. The red veil over my head was roughly lifted aside with a wedding rod. I raised my eyes. The first thing I saw was a man seated in a wheelchair made of red sandalwood. He wore a deep crimson wedding robe. His face was sharply defined, his nose high and carved like jade, and his deep black eyes were like a bottomless abyss. He was handsome, but his beauty carried killing intent and overwhelming pressure. What drew my attention even more was his right hand, hidden inside his sleeve. With my experience from reading countless novels and analyzing behavior, I could tell the muscles in his arm were tense. At that angle, he was definitely gripping a dagger. He wanted to kill me. Xiao Jingchuan looked at me coldly, as if he were looking at a dead object. Su Meier. I immediately lowered my eyes and performed the role of a dignified gentlewoman. My voice was as soft as water. My lord, this humble wife is Su Yaoyao, the eldest daughter of the Su family. My second sister was unwell. Father feared it would delay your lordship's auspicious hour, so he had this humble wife marry in her place. This humble wife knows her status is low, but I am willing to be your lordship's legs for the rest of my life and will never complain. Xiao Jingchuan narrowed his eyes. He had already received intelligence. The Su family had colluded with the crown prince. By sending a daughter into the Marquis manor, there was a high chance they intended her to act as a spy and search for the military tally. He had planned to cut this woman's throat tonight and make the scene look as though she had died suddenly of illness. But just as he was about to draw the dagger, a clear, unruly voice suddenly rang out unmistakably inside his head. Oh my heavens, a handsome man. He is ridiculously good-looking. Those eyebrows, that nose bridge. As expected, the war god's looks really live up to the rumors. What a pity about his crippled legs. But on second thought, that is also good. If he cannot move, then I can sleep peacefully. As long as I obediently pretend to be a puppet wife, collect my monthly silver, and live a leisurely life, everything will be perfect. Xiao Jingchuan, you just stay crippled. Leave all the eating, drinking, and playing to me. The hand Xiao Jingchuan had around the dagger trembled slightly. Shocked, he stared at Su Yaoyao. The woman before him was clearly still lowering her head, lips pressed together shyly, her obedient posture flawless. Then where had that strange voice with its bizarre tone come from? What kind of demon are you? Xiao Jingchuan's brows locked tight, and killing intent spread in every direction. I froze, raised my head blankly, and looked at him with an innocent expression. My lord, what did you say? There is only your lordship and this humble wife in the room. Is this man hearing things? Or did his war injury leave some after effects in his brain? Poor thing. So handsome, yet mentally unwell. Ahem. Maybe he has been alone for too long and started hallucinating. I need to be careful. If he has an episode and starts hacking at me with a knife, I would die for no reason. Xiao Jingchuan took a deep breath. His inner force circulated through his whole body as he confirmed there was no enemy hidden in the shadows using a sound transmission technique. That voice truly came from this woman named Su Yao Yao. It was her inner voice. A sheltered noble daughter was using strange words like handsome man and mentally unwell, and she even dared suspect that his brain was damaged. Xiao Jingchuan slowly released the dagger inside his sleeve. If the Su family had gone to such trouble to place someone this interesting and bizarre in his manor, killing her immediately would be too much of a waste. He wanted to see whether this woman was some demon or monster, or someone with an extraordinary talent for pretending to be foolish. The Su family is truly bold, daring to deceive me. Xiao Jingchuan spoke coldly and pushed his wheelchair to the side of the bed by himself. Get on the bed. I obediently answered and carefully climbed onto the bed. I flattened myself into the corner against the wall and pulled the quilt tightly up to my neck. Thank goodness, he did not kill me. My pitiful act had worked perfectly. Wait, he told me to get on the bed, but he is crippled, right? He probably cannot do anything, can he? Calm down, calm down. Just treat him like a block of ice sleeping beside me. Tomorrow I will begin my career of watching drama in the Marquis Manor. Just thinking about it is exciting. Xiao Jingchuan lay on the outer side of the bed, one hand still resting near his waist where he kept a flexible sword hidden. Listening to the complaints in my head, a cold smile flashed across his lips. She wants to watch drama in the Marquis Manor. This woman really does have a purpose. Then he would keep her alive and see what she could uncover. Our wedding night passed in a strange peace. I slept soundly without a single dream. When I woke the next morning, Xiao Jingchuan was already seated neatly in his wheelchair, fully dressed, studying me with a gaze as sharp as a blade. I scrambled up, pretended to arrange my hair, washed my face, then pushed his wheelchair to the main hall to serve tea to the old madam. The Marquis Manor's household was not overly complicated, but its factions were painfully clear. Old Madame Xiao sat in the seat of honor, stern-faced, holding a string of prayer beads. On the left was second uncle Xiao Heng, the old madam's biological younger son. He looked refined and upright. Beside him was second aunt, Madame Shen, a beautiful woman with lifted eyes that carried a concealed flirtatiousness. Xiao Jingchuan was the eldest son of the deceased first branch. Ever since he became crippled, the authority to manage the affairs inside and outside the manor had fallen into the hands of the second branch. I held the teacup and knelt with dignity. Your granddaughter-in-law greets grandmother. The old madam accepted the tea, took a sip, and looked me over with scrutiny. Lady Su, our marquis was injured for the sake of the nation. Since you have married into this household, you must strictly obey the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, and serve him with all your heart. If I discover that you harbor any other intentions, this Marquis Manor will not tolerate you. I obediently kowtowed. Grandmother's teaching is correct. Your granddaughter-in-law will remember it by heart. On the outside I was humble and submissive, but inside my head my data analysis radar was running at full power. This old lady really has thick skin. She talks about morals while wearing the jade bracelet that was part of my mother-in-law's dowry. She stole the eldest daughter-in-law's property and now acts all high and mighty. Ah, look at second aunt. Her eyes keep drifting toward the head guard standing outside the hall. Tusk. Yesterday I overheard the maids gossiping. This head guard often enters second aunt's courtyard at midnight to patrol. What exactly is he patrolling on her bed? Cough, cough, cough. Xiao Jingchuan, who had just taken a sip of tea, suddenly choked and coughed repeatedly. The whole hall panicked. Second Uncle Xiang hurriedly stood. Jingchuan, what is wrong? Have your injuries flared up again? I quickly stepped forward and gently patted Xiao Jingchuan's back. My lord, be careful, drink slowly. Oh my brother, what is going on with you? Your body is already weak, and now you are choking on water too. But second uncle, stop pretending to care about him. Look at that sachet at your waist, embroidered with a bright red peony. That stitching is clearly from Spring Passion House in the capital. You were not home last night. You went gambling, then stayed overnight in a brothel. There is still powder from a woman's cosmetics on your collar. You are already wearing a green hat 3 feet high, and you do not even know it. What a hilarious family. Hearing this, Xiao Jingchuan's back stiffened. He glanced at Xiao Heng's collar. Sure enough, there was a faint smear of powder. Then he looked at Madame Shen and the head guard outside the door. Their gazes truly carried a furtive, secret exchange. Xiao Jingchuan had relied on a network of secret guards to monitor the filthy affairs of the second branch for months before grasping only a few clues. Yet this woman, Su Yaoyao, had entered the Marquis Manor less than 2 hours ago, and with just a few glances, she had already seen straight through the mortal world. Was she an immortal descended to Earth or some kind of monster? Xiao Jingchuan slowly steadied his breathing. He waved a hand and pushed me slightly away. The gaze he directed at me became even deeper and more complicated. He said coolly, "It is nothing. The tea was simply a little hot." Second Aunt Shen smiled falsely. "Jingchuan is weak. Yao Yao, you must be more attentive in the future. Our Markener has strict rules. You must not act recklessly in anything." I answered yes again and again, then retreated behind Xiao Jingchuan's wheelchair. "All right, second aunt, keep acting. Let me see how you patrol tonight. Tonight I must climb onto the roof of your courtyard and watch the good show. Being a salted fish has its own hardship. I love gossip too much, but this body is a little weak. Climbing will probably be exhausting." The corner of Xiao Jingchuan's mouth lifted by the tiniest degree, so faint no one noticed. He had once thought the Su family had sent him a vicious spy. Now he was starting to believe the Su family had personally thrown away a lawless, strange-minded woman whose eyes were sharper than any of his secret guards. The line of defense in Xiao Jingchuan's heart loosened by the smallest, tiniest trace. He decided he had to supervise this woman closely. If she wanted to watch a show, fine. He would follow and see what tricks she tried to play. 3 days of my salted fish life in the Marquis Manor passed in unexpected quiet. During the day, Xiao Jingchuan shut himself in the study. At night he returned to the room and lay still like a statue carved from ice. The two of us kept to our own sides and did not disturb each other. I ate well, slept well, and cracked melon seeds whenever I had free time. My complexion, once withered and pale, became rosier by several degrees. On the morning of the 4th day, I was sprawled lazily on a couch reading a storybook when Second Aunt Shen entered our courtyard with a maidservant carrying a wooden tray. "Jingchuan, Yao Yao." Madame Shen's voice was so sweet that goosebumps rose all over me. I noticed Jingchuan has not looked well lately, so I specially had the kitchen stew 1000-year ginseng with deer antler. This is extremely nourishing. Drink it while it is hot. Xiao Jingchuan was sitting in his wheelchair reading a military text. He looked up slightly, and a cold trace of mockery flashed across his eyes. I tossed my storybook aside and pretended to stand up solicitously to receive the tray. Second aunt is truly thoughtful. Let this humble wife serve the soup to my lord. The moment I lifted the bowl of soup, my nose twitched. This body's sense of smell was extremely sharp. Added to my experience from binge-watching hundreds of palace intrigue dramas, I immediately noticed the problem. Heavens above, what 1000-year ginseng? This smell is clearly cheap Cotinopsis mixed with licorice root to cover it up. More importantly, this faintly rank, sharp odor is arsenic. Second aunt, oh second aunt, are you really this eager to send my marquis to meet his ancestors so you can seize the title? With poison this concentrated, he would probably foam at the mouth before he could even say his last words. Xiao Jingchuan's hand, which had been turning a page, paused slightly. Arsenic. He glanced at Madame Shen, who was struggling to conceal her nervousness, then at the bowl of soup in my hands. He had already known the second branch harbored ill intentions. He had planned to accept the soup and test it with a silver needle in front of her as a warning. He slowly drew a silver needle from his sleeve. Do not ask why a man carried a silver needle. He was someone who got assassinated every day. Second aunt is kind, but my spleen and stomach have not been well recently. Let me first test whether it has a cold nature. He prepared to dip the silver needle into the bowl. Hey, stop right there, brother. How can you be so foolish? What use is testing with a silver needle against purified arsenic? Silver needles turn black because they react with sulfur impurities in crude arsenic from ancient times. But if the arsenic has been refined properly and has no sulfur impurities, the silver needle will still shine like new. Do not die because you lack basic scientific knowledge. Xiao Jingchuan's movement stopped midair. Chemistry, sulfur, refinement. Once again these strange words bombarded the mind of the Marquis, known as the war god. He did not understand the terms, but he grasped the point. A silver needle could not test this kind of poison. If he had dipped the needle just now and it had not turned black, he would have had to drink the bowl of soup to avoid embarrassing an elder. At that point, his odds would have been grim. A layer of cold sweat formed along Xiao Jingchuan's back. He stared at me. When Madame Shen saw him hesitate, a vicious gleam of triumph flashed in her eyes. What is wrong, Jingchuan? If the silver needle has tested it and there is no poison, surely you do not still suspect your second aunt. I sighed, took the needle from Xiao Jingchuan's hand and smiled. My lord, let this humble wife test it. Then I turned to my maidservant. Hongyan, go to the kitchen and bring me a hard-boiled egg. Peel it before bringing it here. Everyone in the room was confused. Madame Shen frowned. Yao Yao, what are you doing? Second aunt, please do not be upset. This humble wife merely learned a folk trick. The egg was brought over. I broke it in half and used the silver needle to pierce deep into the yolk. After about 10 breaths, I pulled the needle out. The tip of the silver needle had turned pitch black. Madame Shen screamed sharply and retreated several steps. She pointed at my face. Poison. Xiao Jingchuan, your wife tried to poison you, and I caught her red-handed. I lifted my eyelids lightly and answered calmly, Second aunt, do not make false accusations. This egg was laid by a hen and boiled by the kitchen stove. Where would poison come from? The silver needle turned black after entering the egg yolk, because the yolk contains a certain substance cough. In short, something that can change the color of silver. This proves a very simple theory. A silver needle turning black does not necessarily mean there is poison, and a silver needle not turning black does not necessarily mean there is no poison. Madame Shen's face went deathly pale. What nonsense are you spouting? I placed the soup bowl on the table and looked her straight in the eyes. If second aunt says this soup is so nourishing, then this humble wife requests permission to reward it to the black dog guarding the courtyard. It has been barking weakly lately. Perhaps it needs 1,000-year ginseng to nourish its lungs. Before Madame Shen could stop me, I raised my chin toward one of Xiao Jingchuan's secret guards, who was disguised as a servant. The secret guard immediately carried the bowl of soup outside and poured it into the trough for the black dog. The dog licked a few mouthfuls. Less than half a quarter of an hour later, it let out a miserable howl, convulsed violently, foamed at the mouth, and collapsed dead. The entire room fell silent. A cold, murderous aura poured from Xiao Jingchuan and enveloped Madame Shen, making her tremble and drop to her knees. Jingchuan, I did not know. It must have been a mistake in the kitchen. She stammered, her face drained of all color. Xiao Jingchuan did not even look at her. He threw the blackened silver needle onto the floor. His low, hoarse voice sounded like death itself had come to collect a life. Someone. Second aunt has caught a chill and become delirious. Escort her back to her courtyard and confine her there. Every kitchen servant involved today is to be beaten to death and thrown out to the burial ground. Madame Shen wailed and begged for mercy, but she was still dragged away. Only Xiao Jingchuan and I remained in the room. I dusted off my hands and prepared to return to the couch to keep cracking melon seeds. Phew, how mentally exhausting. Matching wits with ancient people burns calories. But today, I saved his life. He should be very grateful to me, right? I wonder if my monthly allowance will be increased. Xiao Jingchuan looked at the woman leisurely eating snacks before him. He did not say a word of thanks. He only lowered his eyes, concealing their depth. She was not foolish. On the contrary, her knowledge far exceeded his understanding. Who exactly did she work for? The crown prince or some hidden force? Yao Yao. He suddenly called my name, his voice carrying a hint of probing. How did you know an egg could blacken silver? I smiled with a little laugh. When this humble wife was still in my maiden home, I often sneaked into the kitchen to play and happened to discover it. My lord need not bother with such little tricks. He fell silent. He naturally did not believe such an obvious lie, but he chose not to expose me. He wanted to let this prey reveal her own tale. That night, the Marquis Manor was calm on the surface, but dark currents surged beneath. Second aunt had been confined. Second uncle Xiao Heng had gone to a banquet at the government office and had not returned. The moon rose to the center of the sky. The wind blew softly, and I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The moon is clear and the breeze is cool tonight. Second aunt has been confined, so her mood must be unstable. That head guard will definitely sneak into her courtyard to comfort her. This is a once-in-a-thousand-years chance to catch those two adulterers red-handed. If I miss this show, I will not be able to close my eyes in peace. Xiao Jingchuan lay beside me, breathing evenly as if he were fast asleep. Hearing my thoughts, his brows furrowed slightly. Had this woman gone mad? She dared run to Madame Shen's courtyard in the middle of the night. He had originally intended to summon secret guards to follow me, but for some reason, he wanted to see it for himself. Only 15 breaths after I secretly crept down from the bed and slipped out the door, Xiao Jingchuan opened his eyes on the bed. He flipped aside the quilt. Dressed in neat black clothes, he touched the ground lightly with his toes, showing no trace at all of being a cripple, and silently followed me like a shadow. I groped through the darkness and spent nearly half an hour reaching the wall of the second branch's courtyard. The wall was about 10 feet high, and in front of it stood an old banyan tree. I rolled up my sleeves and began the grand project of climbing the tree so I could reach the wall. The problem was that the body of the Su family's legitimate daughter was far too weak. On ordinary days, she panted after only a few steps. Where would she get the strength to climb? I clung to the tree trunk, sliding up and down until my hands were scraped and my forehead was soaked with sweat. Damn it. This body is so weak. Zero stamina. If only I had brought a ladder. But bringing a ladder would make me too easy to spot. Come on, Yao Yao. For the noble career of watching drama. For tomorrow morning's fresh gossip. Climb. Xiao Jingchuan stood with his hands behind his back on the roof opposite me, watching the clumsy woman trying to cling to the tree like a frog. The corner of his mouth twitched unconsciously. He had once thought I was going to meet a contact or deliver a secret letter. But I really was only trying to watch Madame Shen's secret affair. Just how outrageous was this woman's taste in gossip? Seeing that my hands were about to slip and that I would fall hard onto my backside, Xiao Jingchuan sighed faintly. A black shadow flashed past. An arm as hard as iron suddenly reached out and caught my slender waist. Before I could make a sound, he used lightness skill, tapped his foot against the courtyard wall, and easily carried both of us onto the roof of Madame Shen's side room. The entire process was quick and silent, without even the faintest sound. I was so frightened that my eyes squeezed shut. When I opened them again, I was already sitting grandly on the cold roof tiles. Beside me was a man in black, half his face hidden by moonlight. My eyes widened. I stared at his long, steady legs, then looked up at the familiar, sharply defined face. "My lord," I almost cried out, but luckily I covered my mouth in time. You are not paralyzed, you can stand." Xiao Jingchuan looked at me coldly, his gaze sharp as a dagger. He bent down and reached out to grip my fair neck. The force was not heavy, but it was enough to threaten. His voice was a murderous whisper. "You saw something you should not have seen. Su Yao Yao, if you dare leak even half a word about my legs having recovered, I will break your neck myself. Do you understand?" He waited for me to tremble. He waited for me to kowtow and beg for mercy. But my reaction left him completely speechless. I blinked and tried to nod while caught in his arms. Holy cow, my marquis is not paralyzed. He can stand. My heavens, his lightness skill is amazing. His arm muscles are so firm. The way he touched my waist feels so full of masculine heat. Kill me? As if. I will be silent as a clam. Even if someone pries my mouth open with pliers, I will not talk. My lord is pretending to be crippled to investigate a case, right? This is the standard secretly powerful male lead script. Perfect. From now on, I have a backer as steady as Mount Tai. He even has lightness skill and can carry me over walls to watch drama. The hand Xiao Jingchuan had around my neck stiffened. He staggered and almost slipped off the roof tiles. What in the world? Her life was nearly gone, yet all she could think about was praising his physique and treating him as transportation for gossip hunting. What exactly was this woman's brain made of? I gently pulled his hand away from my neck and lowered my voice with a grin. "My lord, do not worry. This humble wife is your wife. We are in the same boat, sharing honor and disgrace together. I will carry your lordship's secret to my grave. Now please sit a little farther over. You are blocking this humble wife's view." I slipped past him, carefully lifted a roof tile, and looked down at the room beneath with shining eyes. Xiao Jingchuan was at a loss for words. His killing intent had been strong, but faced with a salted fish who did not care about life and death and only cared about watching gossip, he felt as if he had punched a pillow, powerless and strangely amused. He sat beside me and asked coldly, "What exactly are you doing?" "Shh," I raised a finger to my lips. "My lord, look, it is starting." Through the gap in the roof tiles we could see everything clearly. Second Aunt Shen, dressed in a thin inner robe, lay on a couch, sobbing. The person holding and coaxing her was none other than the Marquis Manor's head guard. "Alang, that cripple Xiao Jingchuan has a stubborn life. Today's bowl of arsenic soup was ruined by that woman's surname. Now I am confined, and that old fool Xiao Heng is useless. What are we supposed to do?" Madame Shen wept. The head guard stroked her back, his voice sinister. "Madam, do not worry. Once the storm has passed in a few days, this subordinate will send men to assassinate that cripple. When the time comes, the title will belong to the second sister, and all the property in the manor will be yours." On the roof, Xiao Jingchuan's face darkened to the extreme. He had known Madame Shen was vicious, but he had not expected her to conspire so openly to kill him. I turned to look at him and whispered, adding another stab. My lord, with second uncle wearing such a bright green hat, what do you plan to do? Kill the head guard now, or keep him as bait? Xiao Jingchuan narrowed his eyes at me. If it were you, what would you do? He was testing me. I yawned and stretched. Killing one dog is easy, but dogs usually run in packs. This guard is quick with his hands and feet, and his martial arts are not bad. He definitely would not dare murder the Marquis alone. There must be someone backing him from behind. It could be the crown prince or some other force in court. Let the line run long to catch a big fish. Wait until they make their move, then catch the whole net at once. Xiao Jingchuan was startled. Sharp analysis, clear strategy. This woman had completely grasped military and political thinking, the exact opposite of her lazy, joking appearance during the day. He fixed his gaze on my delicate face under the moonlight. The silver light fell across my clear eyes, which were blinking with curiosity. For the first time, Xiao Jingchuan felt that this woman, Su Yaoyao, was like a jar of wine. The longer it aged, the stranger it became, yet it made one unconsciously want to take a sip and discover its flavor. Su Yaoyao, he called in a low voice. Yes, we will treat tonight as if we saw nothing. The contract between you and me is officially established. You will help me provide intelligence from the inner courtyard. I will protect you and let you live the rest of your life in comfort inside the Marquis Manor. How does that sound? I nodded happily like a chick pecking rice. See that? I found a sponsor. With the Marquis protecting me, I can walk sideways through this manor while cracking melon seeds and watching drama. This contract is a huge win for me. Hearing my inner voice, Xiao Jingchuan's lips finally curved into a true smile. He reached out and once again wrapped his arm around my waist, holding me firmly. I will take you back to sleep. The night wind whistled past my ears. In the moment he held me and flew through the air, I suddenly realized that the chest of this god of slaughter was actually rather warm. After the night we climbed the wall and failed to catch the adulterers publicly, the relationship between Xiao Jingchuan and me entered a strange new stage. Comrades united by the shared goals of watching drama and milking every advantage we could. Second Aunt Shen was confined for attempting to murder the Marquis. Naturally, the authority to manage the household fell into my hands. Although the old madam was unwilling, she could not find a reason to object. That morning, the steward brought an enormous pile of account books to the study. I looked at the yellowed papers stacked as high as a mountain, and my head ached. Oh heavens, does a salted fish have to work overtime too? I would rather go to the pond and feed the fish than sit here reading all these crawling, worm-like characters. But wait, if I do not understand the finances, how will I know how much money the Marquis Manor has for me to spend? For the noble cause of eating well and dressing warmly, I must risk it. Xiao Jingchuan was sitting by the window wiping the Qinghuan's sword. Hearing the complaints in my head, the corner of his mouth curved unconsciously. He said mildly, "If Madam feels tired, you may simply hand them back to the accountants in the manor." Not tired at all. I immediately picked up an account book and flipped through it as quickly as the wind. With the experience of a data analyst from my previous life, these manually forged ancient account books were no different from elementary school arithmetic. In only half an hour, I had sorted everything out. I took one expense ledger for miscellaneous purchases and slapped it onto the table in front of Xiao Jingchuan, pointing at several small lines of text. My lord, look. Last month, second uncle purchased 30,000 caddies of dried grass for the horses and recorded the price as 50 taels of silver. But the market price for dried grass this season is less than 10 taels. The horses in the manor have been painfully thin lately, which proves the grass bought was low-grade, moldy feed. Where did the 40-tael difference go? Xiao Jingchuan raised his brows slightly, appreciation showing in his eyes. He knew Xiao Heng was embezzling, but he had not expected me to swallow so quickly. I turned to another page. There is more. Look at these small monthly expenses. Lamp oil, fabric for servants' clothes, winter charcoal. Every price is inflated by 3 times, and all the supplies come from one place, Changsheng Trading House. If this humble wife remembers correctly, the owner of Changsheng is second uncle's maternal uncle. He set down the sword, his eyes deep. Continue. Brother is starting to admire me, right? Praise me more. I will keep analyzing. If they are embezzling, there must be somewhere to spend the money. The money flows into Changsheng, but Changsheng is only a shell used for laundering money. Look at the private funds this trading house transfers out. Every month, a steady 3,000 taels of silver is sent to a place called Tingfeng House. I cleared my throat and deliberately made myself sound mysterious. My lord, Tingfeng House is not an ordinary tea house. It is the largest underground gambling house in the capital, is it not? A cold light suddenly flashed in Xiao Jingquan's eyes. Tingfeng House. The case of military supplies being siphoned off at the border, which he had been secretly investigating, had reached its final broken clue at this gambling house. He had not expected that his own blood relatives would be one link in that chain. He stared at me. Sunlight spilled through the window, outlining the delicate side profile of the woman before him. She was lazy, money-loving, and nosy, but her mind was frighteningly sharp and clear. For the first time, Xiao Jingquan felt that this woman had been born to fill the dark spaces in his life. Yao Yao. His voice was low and warm, carrying a trust he himself did not even notice. Tonight, do you want to go out with me? My eyes lit up like autumn lanterns. Where? Tingfeng House, to catch thieves and watch drama. Ah, my lord understands my deepest wish. So adorable I could faint. Going to a gambling house to watch drama with a powerful backer at my side too? Refusing a chance like this would be a crime against myself. Hearing the phrase, hold on to a powerful backer, Xiao Jingquan hurriedly coughed and turned his face away to hide the tips of his ears which had gone red. This woman truly had no idea what shame was. To avoid alerting the enemy, we disguised ourselves that night. Xiao Jingquan played the role of a wealthy disabled young master from Jiangnan visiting the capital. He sat in an ebony wheelchair. I disguised myself as the young page serving at his side. On the surface, Tingfeng House was an elegant establishment for tea and music. But after passing through a secret passage behind a rockery, a vast space opened before us, thick with the smell of wine, incense smoke, and the frantic clatter of dice. The moment we entered the main hall, my radar swept the room. Bingo. Target found. Second Uncle Xiao Hang was sitting at the most exclusive VIP table deep in a corner. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair a mess, and his forehead soaked with sweat. Only a few scattered ingots remained before him. He had lost almost everything. How tragic. But wait. Where did he get that gold-inlaid jade pendant to pawn? Is that not the old madam's family heirloom jade pendant? This old man has gone insane. He even dared steal his own mother's things to gamble. Seated in the wheelchair, he heard my inner voice clearly. He glanced at the jade pendant on the table, his face colder than thousand-year ice. Page boy, wheel me over. At his order, I happily pushed his wheelchair through the crowd. That table was playing dice under a covered bowl. He had slender fingers and crafty eyes, and he shook the dice with practiced skill. Xiao Heng slammed the jade pendant onto the table. This round, I bet everything on big. Zhou Liu smiled smugly. This gentleman is generous. Open the bowl. Wait, look at Zhou Liu's index finger. He tapped the bottom of the bowl lightly. There is definitely lead inside the dice, and there must be a magnet or hidden mechanism under the table. Whichever side he wants up will end up facing up. Second uncle, oh second uncle, you really are a fat sheep waiting to be shorn. Sure enough, when the dice were revealed, it was small. Xiao Heng broke down. He screamed and tried to rush forward to snatch the jade pendant back, but two large guards held him down. Give me more money. I still have the deed to the estate in the suburbs, Xiao Heng shouted like a madman. At that moment, Xiao Jingquan leisurely tapped a finger on the armrest of his wheelchair and tossed a stack of silver notes worth 10,000 taels onto the table. This gentleman seems to be short on funds. How about I play one round? If I win, I take this jade pendant. If I lose, these silver notes belong to the gambling house. Xiao Jingquan spoke calmly. The entire gambling house erupted. When Zhou Liu saw such a fat target, his eyes brightened like torches. Since young master is in such fine spirits, Tingfeng House will be happy to play along. Zhou Liu began shaking the dice. Standing behind Xiao Jingquan, I reached into my sleeve. Earlier, while waiting, I had gone to the storehouse of the Marquis Manor and conveniently taken along a powerful natural magnet used to attract poisonous needles. Daring to show off in front of an expert? Basic physics. A magnetic field can alter the direction of metal-containing objects. These people's dice are definitely filled with lead. Let me see how I ruin your little trick. After Zhou Liu finished shaking the dice, he slammed the bowl onto the table. He tapped with his finger to control the dice toward big. At that exact moment, I pretended to stumble and fell forward. The hand holding the magnet pressed tightly against the underside of the table, right below the bowl. The strong magnetic pull made the 3 dice inside flip over. Ah, I am sorry, young master. This servant is clumsy. I hurriedly stood up. Zhou Liu frowned, but confidently lifted the bowl, expecting a big result. But when the bowl was lifted, the 3 dice clearly showed small. Zhou Liu's face instantly turned gray. The crowd around us shouted in uproar. Xiao Jingquan tilted his head slightly and looked back at me standing behind him with a sly smile. His eyes were filled with a doting amusement he tried to hide. His wife truly was a treasure trove. He reached out and collected the jade pendant and all the silver on the table. Many thanks. Seeing the jade pendant fall into someone else's hands, Xiao Heng screamed in fury. Give it back to me. That belongs to the Xiao household. Zhou Lu also realized something was wrong. He signaled with his eyes, and more than 10 guards immediately rushed forward with blades and axes surrounding us. Brat, you dare cheat at Tingfeng House. Leave both your hands behind tonight before you go. I pretended to be frightened, cried out, and hid behind Xiao Jingchuan's wheelchair. Young master, save me. They look so fierce. Fight, fight. Let me watch brother show off his martial arts. He is the god of slaughter, the Marquis of Weiyuan. How could a few street thugs make things difficult for him? Show them what you can do, husband. I will stand here and cheer enthusiastically. Xiao Jingchuan did not know whether to laugh or cry. Did she see him as some street performer doing martial tricks for entertainment? However, facing the men rushing at him with blades, his eyes became cold and merciless. He did not stand up from the wheelchair. He only patted the armrest lightly. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dozens of drugged-throwing darts shot out from the wheelchair and struck the guards' acupoints precisely. They collapsed to the ground, groaning in pain. At the same time, Xiao Jingchuan's secret guards, who had been lying in wait outside, kicked the door open and rushed in. They took control of the entire gambling house and captured both Zhou Liu and Xiao Heng alive. Only then did Xiao Heng clearly see the face of this disabled young master. He was so terrified he collapsed onto the floor and wet himself. Jingchuan, why are you here? Xiao Jingchuan stroked the jade pendant, his tone deathly cold. Second uncle, the accounts of Changsheng Trading House and my Marquis Manor will be audited clearly on behalf of the court. Take him away. After handling Tingfeng House, we rode a carriage back to the Marquis Manor. Inside the spacious carriage, the faint scent of sandalwood lingered. I patted my chest, let out a breath of relief, and removed the page boy's cap to cool off. My heavens, that was too exciting. Tonight's show deserves 10 out of 10, no deductions. But my husband is handsome, powerful, decisive, and super rich. In my previous life, I must have saved the galaxy to find such a powerful backer. I have to hold on to him tightly and never let go. Xiao Jingchuan had been resting with his eyes closed. Hearing my excited inner voice, the corners of his lips softened unconsciously. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at the woman fanning herself with a small fan, cheeks flushed from the thrill of victory. Yao Yao. He suddenly spoke. His low voice carried a magnetic quality that made one's heart flutter. Yes? I turned to him. He reached out and gently held the hand I was using to hold the fan. His hand was large, with thin calluses from years of holding a sword, yet it gave me an extremely steady sense of safety. You did very well tonight, he said, looking straight at me, his gaze deep and sincere. If you had not found the account books and helped me see through the gambling house's trick, I could not have drawn in the net so quickly. Thank you. I froze. He was thanking me. This cold-blooded god of slaughter, feared by the world, had lowered himself to thank a neglected substitute bride like me. For the first time, my heart skipped a beat. Not because he was handsome or rich, but because of the respect and recognition in his eyes. A little embarrassed, I tried to pull my hand back, but he held it tightly and would not let me escape. He drew me closer, his voice like a whisper by my ear. From now on, in this Marquis Manor, manage things if you want to. If you do not want to, leave it there and I will hire someone else. If you like watching drama and collecting gossip, I will have the secret guards clear the way for you. As long as you always stay by my side, like tonight. Thump thump thump. My heart danced wildly in my chest. Help, this man is flirting lethally. No, this is not good. Yao Yao, you are a salted fish, you cannot fall in love. But when he is this gentle, who can withstand it? Holding hands is just holding hands. What is there to fear? When I drop melon seed shells all over the floor, he even cleans them up for me. This marquis does not seem as scary as the rumors say. Hearing these words, Xiao Jingchuan closed his eyes and smiled. In the cramped space of the carriage, our two hands clasped tightly together. The thread of affection between a man who had lived among schemes and killing, and a salted fish who only liked making jokes, finally began to sprout slowly from the smallest trivial things. The next morning, the news that second Uncle Xiao Heng had been arrested at a gambling house and was drowning in debt exploded through the Marquis Manor like a delayed bomb. The old madam, leaning on a cane, trembled as she charged straight into our courtyard. She cried bitterly and pointed the dragon-headed cane at my face. You jinx, Sue, ever since you stepped into this family, the Marquis Manor has not had a single peaceful day. Jingchuan, your second uncle only overindulged in a little pleasure. How could you drive him to death and hand him over to the Ministry of Justice? Standing behind Xiao Jingchuan's wheelchair, I quietly rolled my eyes. A little pleasure? He played away 80,000 taels of silver, stole the family heirloom jade pendant, and siphoned off military supplies from the border. Old madam, do you know that profiting from military supplies can implicate 9 clans? You protect your son, but what about the lives of tens of thousands of common people and the wounds our Marquis suffered at the border? The old madam has never truly treated the Marquis as her grandson. She only wishes she could strip this entire family estate away to compensate her useless son. Xiao Jingchuan had originally closed his eyes to calm himself. As he listened to the thunderous words in my heart, the murderous aura around him burst forth. For the sake of blood ties, he had tolerated this for a long time, but my inner voice had exposed the old madam's most vicious true face. Grandmother. Xiao Jingchuan slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was colder than frost in the 12th lunar month. Second uncle siphoned military supplies and colluded with a gambling house. If I do not hand him over to the Ministry of Justice, the brocade guards will flatten this Marquis manor tomorrow. You are lying, the old madam screamed. You are the Marquis of Weiyuan. You hold military authority. You could absolutely cover for him. You clearly want to monopolize the title. You cripple. The instant the word cripple left her mouth, the air in the hall seemed to freeze. Standing behind him, I tightened my grip on the handles of his wheelchair. So furious I forgot to be a salted fish, you vicious old woman. How dare you call my man a cripple? He was struck by a poisoned arrow to protect the nation and this rotten family. It is one thing that you do not feel sorry for him, but you even dare insult him. You dare bully someone who belongs to me, Su Yaoyao. Today you are finished. I inhaled, preparing to activate my internal power and curse her back. But before I could speak, a shocking scene occurred. Xiao Jingchuan suddenly placed his hands on the wheelchair's armrests. Then, under the horrified gazes of the old madam and the maidservants, he slowly stood upright. His tall, steady figure was like Mount Tai towering beneath the sun. The commanding aura of a true war god who looked down upon the world appeared without reservation. There was not a single trace of sickly weakness or disability left. Your legs. The old madam was so frightened, she retreated 3 steps and fell onto the floor. The prayer beads in her hands snapped and scattered everywhere. Xiao Jingchuan stood with his hands behind his back and walked steadily toward the old madam. His dignified voice echoed through the room. Second uncle will be exiled 3,000 Lai. Second Aunt Shen will be sentenced to death by white silk. From today onward, the old madam will move into the Buddhist hall to chant scriptures and pray for blessings. Without my order, you may not take half a step outside. After speaking, he turned to look at me standing there with my mouth open. He smiled lightly, a warm smile that scattered all frost. Madam, are you afraid? I shook my head rapidly, my eyes shining like stars. Afraid of what? I am thrilled, my husband can stand. With that powerful bearing, crushing those scum is more than easy. From now on, this Marquis manor is our world. I can openly strut around cracking melon seeds. My lord is mighty. Long live my lord. Xiao Jingchuan heard every bit of protection and pride in my heart. The heart that had been cold for so many years finally melted completely. He reached out and pulled me firmly into his steady chest. The news that the Marquis of Weiyuan had recovered his legs and thoroughly cleaned out the second branch spread outside, shocking the entire capital. Of course, my maiden family, the Su family, could not sit still. Master Su brought Su Meier rushing to the Mark Manor crying and wailing, hoping to rekindle old ties. Su Meier was even shameless enough to use the excuse of deep sisterly affection to ask to enter the household as an equal wife alongside me. In the main hall, I leisurely drank snow lotus tea and watched the father and daughter perform. Yao Yao, back then, it was your father who was muddle-headed. Meier also suffered many grievances. Master Su wiped away crocodile tears. Su Meier knelt on the ground, her eyes darting coquettishly toward Xiao Jingchuan, who sat with dignity in the seat of honor. Brother-in-law, my lord, Meier is willing to serve tea and pour water for you to atone for my mistakes. I lazily lifted my eyelids. Tisk. Such a strong smell of green tea, it is polluting the air of the Marquis manor. She wants to be an equal wife? Then let me settle the debt of being drugged and shoved into the bridal sedan chair in her place, once and for all. Master Su embezzled the flood relief funds from 3 years ago and hid them in the secret cellar under his study. As for Su Meier, my dear little sister, she has been secretly involved with a poor scholar in the suburbs. Holding these two by the throat would be as easy as turning my hand over. Before I could open my mouth and expose them, Xiao Jingchuan calmly placed his teacup on the table and spoke coldly. Official Su, the 100,000 taels of silver meant to aid the people during the flood 3 years ago have already been found by the brocade guards in the underground cellar of your study. At this moment, the imperial decree stripping you of office and confiscating your property should already be posted at the gate of the Su residence. When Master Su heard this, it was like a thunderbolt striking him. His eyes rolled back, and he fainted on the spot. Su Mayer's face turned deathly pale. Trembling, she cried out, "My lord, save me! Elder sister, for the sake of our blood ties, save me!" I smiled sweetly, stood and walked before her. "Good little sister, your elder sister is weak and untalented. I am only a salted fish who likes watching drama. I cannot bear the crime of deceiving the monarch and offending my superiors, especially when that scholar surnamed Liu outside the city is still waiting for little sister to bring him money. Someone, escort the guests out." The secret guards dragged them away. From then on, my ill-fated bond with the Su family was completely severed. Wow, my man handles things so cleanly. He even knows my thoughts before I say them, as if he can see straight through me. Our cooperation is too perfect. Xiao Jingchuan walked over, wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, and rested his chin on the top of my head. His low voice carried a smile. "Is Madam satisfied?" I answered cheerfully. "Extremely satisfied." After the storm passed, the Marquis Manor returned to its long-lost peace and elegance. That night the moon was bright and clear. I had just finished bathing. Wearing a thin silk inner robe, I walked out, planning to climb into bed and sleep soundly to make up for the days spent exhausting my mind. But Xiao Jingchuan was already leaning against the headboard, wearing only a thin inner garment that revealed part of his firm chest. The way he looked at me was deep and burning, like a flame. I swallowed. Wait, that look is too dangerous. He is no longer paralyzed, which means he wants to do husband and wife things. But I am a salted fish. This kind of thing takes a lot of stamina, and with his physique, that waist must be as solid as steel. I am afraid I will not be able to crawl out of bed tomorrow to watch drama. Should I pretend to have a stomachache? Or say I caught a cold? I had just opened my mouth, ready to say, "My lord, this humble wife suddenly has a stomachache," when Xiao Jingchuan suddenly reached out and pulled me hard, making me fall into his arms. He turned and pinned me beneath him. His heated breath brushed my ear, carrying a low, husky laugh with devastating force. "Madam, you do not have a stomachache, nor have you caught a cold. Moreover, this husband assures you that your stamina will be enough. Tomorrow morning I will personally carry you out to the street to watch drama. I absolutely will not let you crawl anywhere." My eyes flew wide open and my mind went blank. "My lord, what did you just say?" Xiao Jingchuan lowered his head and gently kissed my forehead, then the tip of my nose, before finally stopping at my trembling lips. His voice was gentle but extremely clear. "I said that since our wedding night, I have been able to hear your inner voice. You praised me as a handsome man. You called me mentally unwell. You said second uncle wore a green hat. You analyzed the arsenic and the matter of the magnet in the gambling house. I heard every single word. Boom, boom, boom. Thunder exploded beside my ears. My entire body stiffened as if I had turned to stone. Mother of heavens, what in the world is happening? He has had mind-reading powers since our wedding night? Then all my ridiculous thoughts, all my complaints, my comedy, my fangirling, and every bit of gossip I exposed in my head, he has been listening to them like a radio drama? Too embarrassing. Too embarrassing. Someone give me a crack in the floor so I can vanish from embarrassment. Su Yao Yao, oh Su Yao Yao, your life is over. Seeing me squeeze my eyes shut, my face red as a ripe tomato as I tried to find a crack in the ground to crawl into, Xiao Jingchuan laughed freely. It was the truest, freest, most captivating smile he had shown in 20 years. He lifted my chin. His deep eyes were filled with tenderness. "Yao Yao, do not hide. This world is full of deception and falsehood. Around me are blades, swords, and fake faces. Only your inner voice, though noisy and strange, is the most real and the most adorable. More than that, you pulled me from a cold abyss back into the human world." My heart pounded. This god of slaughter's tenderness was truly a fatal sword strike. "My lord," I opened my eyes timidly, "you really heard everything?" Even when this humble wife praised your abdominal muscles, Xiao Jingchuan curved his lips in a wicked smile. His large hand slipped around my silk robe as he said ambiguously, I heard everything. So tonight, this husband will let you personally check whether these abdominal muscles disappoint you." My weak refusal was swallowed by a deep, passionate yet tender kiss. The spring night was warm. The red candles wept wax. The red sandalwood bed creaked softly in teasing rhythm. The salted fish was finally exposed and thoroughly roasted in the warm flames of the cunning Marquis's love. 3 years later, Xiao Jingchuan completely handed over his military power and kept only an idle noble title. Every day, he clung to his wife and refused to let go. On the highest floor of the most luxurious restaurant in the capital, I sat sideways in a soft lambskin-padded armchair, holding a handful of melon seeds and cracking them with little snaps. Beside me, the majestic Marquis of Weiyuan, Xiao Jingchuan, carefully peeled walnut shells, blew on each kernel, and fed them into my mouth one by one. I chewed happily, my eyes fixed on the street below, where the dignified Minister of Rights was being chased and beaten by his own wife until his head was bruised and swollen because he had secretly kept a mistress. Oh my, excellent hit. Madam. Strike him where it hurts. Oh, look at that, the mistress lost her embroidered shoe while running away. Too dramatic, this gossip is perfectly ripe. Husband, remember to have people spread this story to the tea-house storytellers tomorrow. Xiao Jingchuan poured me a cup of chrysanthemum tea and gently wiped the corner of my mouth. Madam, drink some tea to soothe your throat. Watch it in your head only. Do not get too excited, or you may disturb the baby. I rubbed my slightly raised belly, tilted my head, and smiled until my eyes curved. My lord, do you think the little heir will like watching drama as much as this humble wife does? Xiao Jingchuan reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair from my cheek. His eyes were so indulgent they seemed capable of tolerating all things. As long as the child is born from you, whatever he likes, this husband will indulge. If you like watching the world's drama, then I will keep this world peaceful so you and our child can spend your whole lives as spectators. I leaned my head against his steady shoulder, the corners of my lips curving into a sweet, satisfied smile. So what if I transmigrated into a salted fish? I had a sharp mind, a miraculous gossip radar, and most importantly, a god of slaughter who doted on me to the very end. In this life I had drama to watch and a husband to love. It was complete perfection.